Trump liable for sexually assaulting her, and an immigration check-in with lawyers for civil rights Marianne Albert and Amherst College Ilan Stavans. And to end this Thursday, we'll open the phone lines for you to weigh in on who is the a-hole. This week, a husband tells his spouse how to mop the floor while he's sitting on the couch. It does not go well for him. It's all next on BPR.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. The White House says the U.S. is planning a facility in Kenya for Americans who may have been exposed to the Ebola virus. There is a growing outbreak in East Central Africa. As NPR's Ping Huang reports, the White House plan is drawing criticism.
The U.S. took a leading role in the 2014 Ebola outbreak. It's taking a different tactic now. Then, the U.S. sent thousands of trained responders to the affected region and brought them back to the U.S. Now, the White House says they'll send Americans who may have been exposed to the virus and aren't showing symptoms to a facility they're standing up in Kenya. Dr. Dan Jernigan, who led CDC's response during the 2014 outbreak, says the policy discourages aid workers.
If they can't even rely on the federal government to help them get back if they get sick, that is a chilling message for those that are willing to really go and help.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said the current administration, quote, cannot and will not allow any cases of Ebola to enter the United States. Ping Huang, NPR News.
The Justice Department has opened an investigation into the writer E. Jean Carroll over potential perjury tied to her civil lawsuits against President Trump. It's the latest probe to target a perceived enemy of the president's. NPR's Ryan Lucas has more.
The investigation into E. Jean Carroll is being handled by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Chicago. That's according to a person familiar with the matter who spoke on condition of anonymity. The investigation is examining whether Carroll committed perjury in a deposition tied to civil lawsuits she brought against Trump. Carroll won a $5 million civil judgment against Trump for sexually abusing her decades ago and another $83 million judgment against him in a defamation suit. The Justice Department did not respond to a request for comment. The investigation is the latest launched by the Trump DOJ against the president's critics or perceived political adversaries. Ryan Lucas, NPR News, Washington.
California Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom signed a bill to ban law enforcement from interfering in elections ahead of the state's primary next week. The bill was authored after a California sheriff seized hundreds of thousands of ballots earlier this year. From member station KVCR, Madison Almond reports.
The new law makes it a crime for law enforcement authorities to seize ballots from election officials. It also bans them from accessing voting equipment and lists without a court order. Newsom says the law strengthens election integrity amid challenges from local and federal officials.
We have to clarify the rules of engagement. That's why this legislation is important. There are fines associated with this and jail time, 3 years.
The fine for taking ballots is $1,000. In February, Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco, who's a Republican and running for governor, seized 650,000 ballots from a vote to redraw the state's congressional map to favor Democrats. For NPR News, I'm Madison Ament in San Bernardino.
You're listening to NPR.
Good morning with the latest from the GBH newsroom in Boston. I'm Craig Lamolt. The town of Rutland is canceling its 4th of July fireworks parade and concert amid concerns about limited fire and police staffing. GBH's Diana Dame reports the announcement comes just over 2 weeks after Rutland residents voted down an override to Proposition 2.5, which limits the amount of property taxes a town can collect.
The override's failure means that 4 full-time police officers and 5 full-time firefighters are expected to lose their jobs, according to the town's website. Town officials said the cancellation was due exclusively to public safety concerns and not because of funding issues. The money raised by the 4th of July committee won't be given back since some of it has already been spent. Instead, the remaining balance will go toward future 4th festivities. Diana Dame, GBH News.
Cape Cod officials are calling on the state to extend year-round commuter rail to Bourne. State Senator Dylan Fernandez says the Cape's transportation needs have grown.
Year-round service between Boston and Hyannis ended in 1959, and since then the Cape and Islands have changed dramatically. And despite that incredible growth, car travel remains the primary way people move to and from our region.
A state study in 2021 estimated the cost of extending service from Middleborough to Buzzards Bay at $67 million. Some showers expected today, maybe even some thunderstorms this afternoon. Highs today in the low 70s. More rain tonight. Looks like a beautiful day tomorrow. Partly sunny with a high near 70. The Red Sox host the Braves today. That game starts at 4:10. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include FJC, a foundation of donor-advised funds working to maximize the impact of charitable giving and to create customized philanthropic solutions. Learn more at fjc.org.
He's Jim Browdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM. We are live in Brighton and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We'll be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow, joined by Dr. Zeke Emanuel, talking about ways to fix healthcare. And on Tuesday, also at the Boston Public Library, we're going to be joined by Governor Maura Healey. She'll be at the library with us from 11 to noon, taking our questions and yours. Good morning, Jim.
Hey there. And today, a little bit before noon, 12:30, we'll bring you the latest update as best we can on the situation of the Boston Symphony Orchestra after the termination of Andres Nelson's. So we start the show today with, quote, the only person who can save America, as described yesterday by Donald Trump's own cabinet.
The country owes you a great debt of gratitude, and the world, really, because, I mean, you're the only leader in the planet that can bring the two sides together to bring an end to this conflict.
What you have assembled in your vision is a turning point and an inflection point in American history.
What happened in Afghanistan, what happened in Ukraine, a war that never would have occurred, what happened on October 7th in Israel, never would have happened under President Trump.
That is exactly right. Putting aside how nauseating it is that there's nobody in Trump's cabinet who seems willing to reveal the emperor has no clothes on any issue, or at minimum, introduce a little bit of reality and honesty in the discussion. We want to hear from you about all the times in your professional or work life that you felt you had to kiss up to your boss in order to survive, or when you thought that but decided not to do it anyway.
Okay, excuse me, Jim. I was just informed. Well, we actually have some sound from this morning's editorial meeting right here at GBH. Can we please get that sound?
Jim, you have such a brilliant mind. Your ideas this morning were otherworldly. I don't know how you do it.
Thank you.
No, Jim, I love it when you pitch, is this the straw that'll break Trump's back 5 days in a row for multiple weeks on end? It's great.
Jim, I love when you interrupt Marjorie. You always have something so important to say.
Mr. Browdy, we're so lucky to have you. Your taste in music is absolutely impeccable.
Well, I don't really understand why you play that. That's accurate, and Jim, nobody knows what your point is.
We were at a Boston Magazine event the other night, and everyone stopped to tell me we love Jim's beard.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
And he's looking so svelte.
You should have said that at the staff meeting this morning. So the lines are open at 877-301-8970. Call or text. Tell us about the circumstances where you felt you were forced to bow down to your boss to make it to another day in your job, how you felt about doing it. Or, again, if you summoned the courage to say, which is not easy, the boss expects this, but I'm not going to do it. And, obviously, what do you make of the cabinet's abject sycophancy? There was a story, at numbers 877-301-8970. I mentioned this the other day, but I wasn't sure what the source was. The New York Times did a digest of every comment that every cabinet secretary under Trump has made in any of the cabinet meetings. 1 out of 6 sentences that come out of their mouths are flattery, sycophancy, whatever, to the emperor, to Donald Trump. It's unbelievable. How do they have any pride?
Well, I mean, Marco Rubio.
The worst.
He's so pathetic that he wore the shoes, the
exactly.
floor-time shoes that were 4 sizes too big or whatever they were that looked ridiculous on him because he didn't want to upset the president. By the way, Rubio is supposedly the worst of all. He's always going on and on about how wonderful Donald Trump has performed. And there's Howard Lutnick. You have changed America and created the golden age, Mr. Trump.
The head of the Small Business Administration, Kelly Loeffler, yesterday. You're leading us to the greatest economy the world has ever seen?
Yeah.
Who's she talking to?
Yeah, we just read that they're going to have to raise interest rates again.
Pete Hegseth compares him in public to Washington and Lincoln in the cabinet room. It is just incredible. So if you want to talk about that level of sycophancy in the cabinet room, those are your cabinet officials, that's fine. But we're actually more interested today, or equally interested, I should say, is when you've been put in a position where you felt it was necessary to bow down to your boss. Did you do it? If you did, how did it feel? And if you didn't do it, what kind of anxiety did it cause you? By the way, I've had bosses where you didn't have to exactly, past bosses, I should make clear, where you didn't have to praise them mindlessly like this, but you did, and we prepared, me and my coworkers, before we went into these meetings, to repeat their own ideas from the last meeting. I'm not making this up, almost verbatim back to them. And then they'd nod like...
Yeah, what a brilliant
And you know how that
idea.
felt, by the way?
You felt horrible.
Horrible. You felt like a total and complete fraud. You justify it by saying, not only will I continue to survive, but maybe I'll get what I really need if I give him what he really needs, you know?
But you know one thing, there's this Fortune magazine, and of course a business magazine, talking about sucking up to your boss doesn't usually work because they don't trust you. They think that you are full of baloney. But apparently it works for Trump, and he does seem to believe these things.
Oh, wait. Can I, with all due respect to your reading of Fortune magazine, it totally works if you bow down to Trump. Look at Tulsi Gabbard.
It does.
I'm joking, Marjorie.
Oh,
Tulsi
you're joking.
Gabbard,
Okay.
Pam Bondi, the woman who is head of the Labor Department.
Kristi
Noem. They bowed down and they were all given the boot.
Oh, Mr. Trump. Oh, Mr. Trump.
I mean, it's just, I know I say this a lot, so apologies to the audience and you.
Yep.
How can you go home at night and see your friends, your family, most importantly, your children, after you've done this kind of embarrassing sycophancy in front of an incompetent, felonious, sex-abusing leader? I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Okay, here's a text. I don't get it. I don't blame the cabinet. I'm the same. I suck it to my boss when he too is unconscious in our staff meetings.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to mention. Well, never mind. I won't mention that. 877-301-8970 is the number. Usually, these meetings are not televised. Usually,
they are under Trump.
Well, they are under Trump. It's an unusual thing. And the White House spokesperson, Allison Schuster, said, he likes to have these meetings open to the press, quote, allowing his talented team to highlight the exhaustive list of accomplishments they have delivered on behalf of the American people to make America great again. They're not usually done this. And it's like a round table. You have to go around the room and say all these wonderful things. Where was RFK Jr.? I don't see his... He
was picking up snakes. Do you see that video from the other day when he's picking up two snakes and parading them around?
No.
By the way, the EPA administrator, Lee Zeldin, listen, I'm reading from yahoo.com. This is not some left-wing site. Listen to this. Speaking about a $2 billion Biden-era environmental justice fund, obviously that's horrible. Thanks to your leadership, Mr. President, that was canceled. Boy, thank God he canceled an environmental justice
is
fund.
A good thing that prevents people in tough parts of the country from having to breathe in fumes and get asthma and all these dread diseases.
Toxic waste cleanup, that sort of thing.
Did you do the one from Secretary Scott, how do you say his name?
Besson. I haven't done that yet.
Mr. President, the continued resiliency of the economy speaks for itself.
It does.
Even during the Iran conflict.
Right.
And it speaks to the strength of your leadership.
You know why I did it? He was about to say war, and you're not allowed to say war. It's either conflict or skirmish or whatever it is. 877-301-8970. It's nauseating. But I have been, have you ever been in a situation like I just mentioned I had? You ever been in a situation where you felt, maybe not to this extent, but you had to flatter the boss to either survive or make it through a tough slog or whatever it was?
I think maybe when I was young, not to disagree with them or to put up with stuff that I probably shouldn't have put up with, not to cause a scene. I've probably done that.
Let's take some
But
calls.
not sucking up. Listen to this.
Yeah,
I am
second,
physically unable to bow down and kiss a boss's shoes. I just can't do it. So you better not go work for Donald Trump.
Well, in all fairness, as you said before, I want to correct the texter. Marco Rubio did not kiss the boss's shoes. He wore the boss's shoes. So that is technically not what happened in that case. Tom, you're in Western Mass somewhere. Welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey, Jim and Marjorie, thank you so much. I love your show.
Thank you much.
Power to you guys, and really appreciate it. Hey, so anyway, boss story. I worked at an agency out here in Western Mass for 32 years. My whole, my late 20s to 30s, 40s, into my 50s. And I was fired after 32 years because the person, and here it is, I worked alongside this one person for 32 years, and when my boss retired, they made her the boss of the agency, okay? So before I know it, I'm not invited to any more meetings, and then I get written up for not attending these meetings, and I try to say, what are you doing, And then they make me do this PIP thing, progress, whatever. And all these, I couldn't believe it. And after 32 years, they had a big fundraiser. And I called all my friends over the country to see if they would raise some money for the agency. And they did. They raised a little bit of money for this agency, a nonprofit out here in Western Mass. And after that, I did that, this boss wrote me a letter, says, you are not supposed to help us raise money. It is for the fundraiser only. And I saw the boss and I said, I've been here 32 years and I've been doing everything in my effing power to help this agency. And I said that to her, and next day I was fired.
Can I tell you something?
That's a hell of a story.
One of you is going to heaven, the other isn't. So I think despite the outcome, you totally did the right thing. Tom, thanks for your call. We really appreciate it. Thanks.
Tom in Narragansett wants to know, is it true that in Washington, derriere kissing is a competitive team sport? And somebody else, Seth in Rhode Island, says, it's almost like the Stepford Wives have taken over our executive branch.
Really is true.
What is happening? Seriously, what is happening? I do remember one boss, this is a long time ago. This isn't exactly the same thing, but he used to comb his hair over your desk. He'd come over to talk to you, and he'd start combing his hair, and he had very bad dandruff, so you'd be talking to him, and the dandruff would be falling on you.
You say, I love the dandruff. It reminds me of snow in spring.
And of course, we never said anything.
Well, that's a variation on a theme. No, that is. That's a
You just kind of go to the ladies who try to get it out of your hair,
That's
get it off
great.
your stuff. Yeah, it was really, why did he do that? I haven't thought he knew he was doing it and did it anyway. It was like a passive
Intimidation
aggressive.
kind of
I
thing?
thought so. Why would you do that? Anyway.
You could have caught it and say, would you like this back? Or, a more subtle way to. It's
Yeah, put a little cup, put a little plate, and catch the dandruff as it fell. Okay, Beaver from
Forge Village.
Forge
Hi.
Village. Hi, Beaver.
How are you?
Hi, guys. How's it going?
Never better. What's going on?
Good. I worked at a company where they refused to listen to ideas from lower management.
Oh, yeah.
So I found a way to get around it. If I had an idea that I thought was critical to the company's progress, I would feed it through one of the senior managers. I'd say, well, I like John's idea to do this, blah, 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 blah. And everybody would go, that's a great idea, and look right over at him. And he just shake and said yes.
Yeah.
Now that's a variation on a theme. And how upsetting is that? But just listening to you tell it is upsetting. How'd that feel?
Oh, it ate me up. But
Yeah.
I only lasted about 13 years there.
That must have been fun. Hey, Beaver, good to talk to you as always. Thanks.
Okay, Amy in Wheelwright wants to know if we can teach her partner to praise her maybe just once every 6 sentences, like apparently Marco Rubio does. And Lance and Lynn says, in our machine shop, the best our boss got was a thunderous round of silence.
Well, for those of you who haven't experienced this, again, if you ever even come close to what these cabinet members are doing, it gives you a sick feeling in your stomach that even years later you can remember the physical feeling. It's so horrible. And again, I don't know. Some of these people were governors, executives of companies, multi-billion-dollar companies. They're not people who couldn't get a job, and all of a sudden, through the graciousness of the President of the United States, we're able to get employment. These are, for the most part, pretty accomplished people.
I don't know how, Mark, people talk about it's going to be Vance or Rubio that succeeds Trump. I I don't know how Marco Rubio is going to survive the ads that whoever runs against him is going to run of his drooling at the feet of the president.
Well, how about Hank said, you said Vance. Yeah,
Vance does more
true.
insults.
Yeah.
That's apparently his thing. He spends his time insulting Trump's political opponents, which works, but he's not quite up to the sycophancy that some of the other cabinet members.
So have you ever had a bow down to a boss? And more specifically, this may actually be more interesting. Have you ever had a boss walk over to your work area and have his dandruff come down all over your desk and your person?
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Exactly. That is what it's like. It's horrible.
He did it to all of us young reporters there in the newsroom. Okay, let's go to Krista from Haverhill. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Krista.
Hi there, Jim and Marjorie.
Hey.
The dandruff is that's disgusting.
That is.
Isn't it disgusting?
I can't even fathom that. And I've been very lucky. I mean, lucky perhaps, where I've never felt like it was a necessity to be overly praising any bosses of mine. I think it's terrible how easily people will compromise themselves to try and get that approval. But I have had to be, silent in front of some bosses just because I've been flabbergasted by some of their behavior. I had one in my early 20s. I was working at a place where they had selling electric toothbrushes, and this manager so constantly pronounced the word gingivitis as gingivitis. And I remember in the moment.
Gingivitis. Oh, my God. That's something I would do, actually. Go ahead.
And I'm like, wow, this is really how I'm really making minimum wage under this guy.
Gingivitis.
That, by the way, I'm glad you brought that up, Krista, because it was silence when a normal person should be able to say something politely. A la the dandruff story is just as painful as having to be sycophantic like this. If the dandruff thing had happened in the cabinet with Trump, not only would they have to be silent like you, they'd have to say, that's the best dandruff, Mr. President, maybe ever. The largest, best dandruff we've ever seen.
Reveals the highest testosterone count, not just in Washington, in the United States of America.
You don't even see this on Mount Everest.
In the world.
Exactly. 877-301-8997.
How about the cage match thing that got set up in front of the White House?
Can I tell you something? I was speaking to a common friend of ours who does work in both of our houses yesterday.
Oh, yes.
About that, the great Sarah. And have you seen the visuals, the graphics? They're setting up this, what is it, MMA
UNC
or whatever.
Or SUC.
This wrestling thing for July 4th.
Yeah.
Behind the White House, on the
John
White
McCain
House
called
grounds.
it a cockfight. Did you hear?
John McCain's dead.
I know. But I think people respect him. That's why I.
What did he call it? How did he know? Oh, he talked about that kind of sport in general.
Not the thing right now, but
yeah.
the event. But I did hear Dana White on a podcast, the New Yorker podcast of all places, and
he's a good buddy of Trump's.
I know, but I was surprised at how normal he sounded. He spent a lot of time in Massachusetts. Jim, he said he used to be a liberal.
Is that what he said? Really? I didn't know
and he
that.
also asked he was also asked what he thought about Trump and racism. He said he didn't know anything about the ad depicting Michelle and Barack Obama's apes. He claimed he didn't know anything about that. Never saw it.
Yeah, but I heard the last part. I heard he said in the last part of the interview, best dandruff I have ever. Donald Trump has the best dandruff.
Big white
Look
flakes.
at the flakes.
Huge.
They are just so beautiful. By the way, they're gold. I don't know if you know. His dandruff, they're gold. What is that called? Gold filtered? No,
gilded.
Gilded.
Yeah.
Let's go to Chuck and Brighton.
Gilded dandruff.
Chuck. Chuck and Brighton.
Hey guys, so I got a story for you.
Please.
So I used to be a personal trainer, and when I first started off, I was working in this gym, and I was, having some difficulty gaining traction because in these big gyms you have to be basically a salesman, and I don't like being a salesman. And so my boss was saying, you just have to go up to everybody, go up to the biggest guy in the gym, tell them what you do, see how you can help them. So I was like, all right. So one day I gave it a try, and I went up to the biggest guy I could find. And he said, okay, yeah, I want to work with you. So the end of the day, I saw my boss and I said, oh, I got this guy, this big guy. His name is, I don't know, we'll call him John. And she's like, oh, John. Well, you just be careful with John, okay? But she wouldn't tell me any more information. So I went home that night, and I told my friend, and she was like, well, why don't we look this guy up? And I looked him up, and he was a registered sex offender.
Oh,
no! And on top of that, the gym was right next door to a daycare. And I went back to work the next day, and I was like, how could you let this guy in the gym? And I ended up leaving because they really didn't care. Big difference between me and the cabinet, by the way.
Well, I mean, again, you did. And how good does that feel when you're able to say what? Oh, he's gone. I mean, Chuck, I am totally with Chuck, obviously, and good for him.
You know, Stuart from Norwell has an interesting idea.
What's that?
He says what I should have done with the dandruff situation is have a snow globe on my desk.
I like that.
And whenever the boss came along, simply shook the
Shake it.
snow globe
I like it.
and then watched it. Maybe that would have sent him a message. I don't know.
Next time.
Mhm.
Paul in Chelmsford, hey.
Hey, guys. How are you today?
Excellent. Thank you. What's going on?
Good. Hey, I wanted to reinforce what Marjorie said earlier about Marco Rubio. When all is said and done, all these lowlifes that are sycophanting with the big guy, we're going to have video, we're going to have audio, we're going to have photographs, all of them kissing his bumble. And you couldn't ask for anything more for 2028, 2032. All these guys, they are, as soon as the big guy is out of there, they're all going to hopefully regret their engagement model.
Well, the reason I can relate to what you're saying is, can you imagine, let me come up with a ridiculous example, that we had video of a candidate for president saying he can grab them by the whatever. That guy obviously could never be elected, even dog catcher. So that'll be really valuable. Paul, thank you much for your idea. Again, I don't think the laws of politics apply. I agree with that with the caller, to people like Rubio and others, like they apply to Donald
he's
Trump.
unique.
So he is unique.
He's unique. J.D. Vance is not Donald Trump. But I think he is more calculating because he's kind of very quiet on Iran, which most of America disagrees with.
He's an anti-war guy.
And he's much less suck-uppy.
So you said Trump is unique. If your boss said to you, what you're describing, Margie, is very unique. It's one of our pet peeves, Margie and I. No, nothing goes before unique. It's either unique or not.
Right.
Would you correct the boss?
I would not.
Exactly.
Or the
Neither would
boss
I.
that said gingivitis was
Gingivitis,
I just let it go. Let it go.
Lillian in Dorchester, you have 45 seconds. Welcome. Hi.
Oh, hi. Wow, I can't believe it. Hi, Jim. Hi, Marjorie.
Hi.
So I used to work for a big-time broker, and they were very high-end. And I remember immediately when I started, they told me to not waste time with Section 8 rentlers because they were professional toilet flushers. Already there, I was like, okay, this is probably not going to be for me. And then the following thing happened was that I had a tenant who was not a Section 8, actually, had a lot of money, but still decided to forego my fee that they had signed pay. And the broker decided to not go to court because there wasn't enough money for them, even though at the time I was pregnant and had a good bread. So I ended up leaving and started my own brokerage.
Well,
so that's my story.
Well, it's a
That's
good
a good
story.
one. That's a
Lillian,
good one,
I'm sorry, I'm
Lillian.
gonna
Thank
cut
you
short.
very much
Call us again.
for calling. Okay, thank you for all those great calls and texts. I was particularly fond of the gingivitis one myself. Joe Kennedy III and his Groundwork project is building community and organizing democratic politics, focusing on this race. And we're going to introduce you to the candidate in Mississippi and Joe Kennedy. Up next, I'm Marjorie Egan. He is Jim Brady. I guess you already know Joe Kennedy. I have to introduce you to him. You're listening to BPR and GBH and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Jared Bowen. Tune into The Culture Show for daily discourse on the arts and culture scene, and join us for what is a continuous conversation about the state of the arts with the most interesting thinkers, innovators, and creators in the region and beyond. From the poets to the painters to the power brokers who hold the purse strings. It's all here on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you. And Central Square Theater, presenting The Mystery of Irma Vep, A Penny Dreadful, Charles Ludlam's subversive and camp spoof of Gothic melodramas, now through June 21st. CentralSquareTheater.org. And Newbury Court, serving Concord, Massachusetts for 30 years as a not-for-profit continuing care retirement community dedicated to older adults. More at newburycourt.org.
Welcome back to BPR and GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy. We're live in Brighton, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Tomorrow we're joined by Dr. Zeke Emanuel on fixing the healthcare system. Next Tuesday at the library, Governor Healy joins us from 11 to noon to take your questions and ours. Joined now in Studio 3 by former Massachusetts Congressman Joe Kennedy III, who in 2021 founded the Groundwork Project, a little D-democracy organizing effort focusing on underserved communities, particularly in some southern states like Mississippi. In a few minutes, Joe Kennedy will be joined on our show with the Democratic candidate for United States Senate from Mississippi. But for now, we welcome Joe Kennedy. Joe Kennedy, good to see you.
Stuck with me, and as I said, still smarting from that gingivitis comment.
Sorry.
I think most people know what he's talking about.
Sorry.
Exactly.
Proud redhead here.
Yeah,
right?
proud redhead. Okay.
There we go.
So I don't think we've talked to you about this. A lot of people remember your dad's Joe for Oil, the trucks going around helping people get their oil.
1-800 Joe for Oil.
Excuse me, 1-800. I think it's one. Yeah, is it 1-877?
Yeah, 1-800 Joe for Oil,
Okay.
right? Wasn't it? Yeah.
Okay. But you have kind of brought it into the 21st century big time. What are you doing over there?
Marjorie, thank you. So Citizens Energy was started nearly 50 years ago by my dad. It's a nonprofit, so it's a nonprofit parent that sits on top of a bunch of for-profit entities. So we run this as a proper business, but the revenue goes up to a nonprofit parent. We give the money away. So Citizens, over the course of the nearly 50 years we've been around, have given away over $600 million back to low-income families across the country. They did a bunch of different energy stuff, including that low-income heating oil project there, program that we had before. But over the course of the past 15 years or so, and predating before I got to Citizens, they really transitioned the company into a diversified renewable energy company. So battery storage, microgrids, we've got about 45 different solar programs around the country, 43. And then a transmission model that is actually really unique to us and is an exciting thing to be a part of here as we're in this energy transition that I think will help catalyze kind of the demand that we need while actually keeping communities at the table and getting something out of this transition that is so important for our country and our planet.
So it used to be 1-800 Joe for Oil. It's now 1-800 Joe for Sun. When people call that, is that not true?
That is true.
So when you call
877 Joe for Sun.
Oh, sorry.
877.
Marty, sorry about that. My apologies. What happens when you call?
So that's we are the largest. Citizens is the largest provider of low-income community solar in New York and Massachusetts. Oh. We've also got the single largest low-income community solar program in the nation. It's actually in Southern California. And so the community solar program works. People call up, and depending on your kind of geographic location, you qualify. You obviously got to be low income, and we help give discounts to your energy bills. So it works just like your regular old. You keep your utility, you keep your bill. It gets a little complicated the way we do it here, unfortunately, in Massachusetts, given some of the regulatory requirements, but we essentially give folks a couple $100 bucks off their bill every year just for signing up.
That's fabulous. I hope you'll return. Marjorie and I talked about this, and we know we communicated it to your people too. We want to spend a whole segment at some point soon about the work that Citizens is doing. We want to move on to something we touched on with you several months ago when there was a front page story about you and your work in the New York Times. Groundwork Project. Tell us what it is.
Groundwork is an organization I started back in 2021 that supports local community organizers, really community builders, Jim, in places that often don't get a whole lot of resources or attention, but are out there meeting local community needs day after day, helping people, whatever that need happens to be, whether it's helping people, eat, community economic development, housing, just almost the most basic of the most basic. But for whatever reason, and we can get into a lot of those reasons, but kind of a national political system and philanthropic system often leaves these folks behind. And
Who was the inspiration for this?
The inspiration for this was, so it's a couple of different places, or a couple of different parts of it, right? One was my time in office and seeing how a political system on the Democratic side particularly continues to focus on winnable seats. Because, look, when you're in office, you need to be in power, meaning in the House of Representatives, particularly have the majority. And if you don't have the majority, you got to focus on winning the majority. So you focus on the seats that you can flip. The problem is when you don't focus on other places, one, saying everybody counts, well, if you never show up in these places, it's hard for people to believe it. 2, you cede that territory and that terrain to those other political forces. And so you end up kind of working yourself into a narrower and narrower playing field. But then when I think of like the leaders and community builders that have exemplified, that I look up to over my time in public life, obviously other members of my family that have spent time in places like this, whether that's in Mississippi or other parts around the country, supporting people that are finding a way to care for a community member, no matter what the challenge. From a Democratic Party world, like that's what we're supposed to be doing, and there's people out there doing it every day, so let's support them.
What can we say other members of your family? Specifically, not to be exclusive, obviously your grandfather, Robert F. Kennedy, who traveled much of the same path that the Groundwork Project is traveling.
Yeah, and look, he had a real focus on civil rights and poverty and economic deprivation, and that brought him to the Mississippi Delta back in the 1960s, and amongst plenty of other places domestically and around the world. What I think, having had the opportunity now to spend some time in some of those places too, you see without question that progress has been made. You see also without question that deprivation still exists. One of my favorite stories, we've talked about this a little bit before, and with another friend of this show is Mike Curry, who runs the Mass League of Community Health Centers. Mm-hmm. You think of the difference now and then 60 years later from 1965, Massachusetts, I think people here know about the community health center movement, and we've got a number of them across our Commonwealth. The first 2 community health centers in the country were in Dorchester, Massachusetts, and Mound Bayou, Mississippi, the Delta Health Center. And that Delta Health Center came about because of Tufts University. And Jack Geiger and a doctor in Mississippi named Robert Smith, who is still seeing patients to this day. He's in his 90s. And Count Gibson, that took funding from the Office of Economic Opportunity under Sarge Shriver, and LBJ routed money through Tufts, and they created the first community health center, which I think I mentioned this story, and I know I'm long here, but when Trump surged troops into Democratic cities, you compare to what he did and the chaos and the violence that came from it, versus surging doctors into the Mississippi Delta in 1965. Those doctors are still there. And 60 years later, the community health center movement treats 35 million Americans a year.
And 1 million in Massachusetts, by the way.
Joe Kennedy, we're about to speak to someone who wants to get into Congress, but
God bless him.
Well, God bless him. That's just one last quick question for you. In one of these stories that I read in preparation for talking to you today, you described the House anyway, where you were, and maybe you meant both the House and Senate, but the House, a brutal, toxic place. Which is kind of depressing.
I think the discourse that we are seeing today across our political system is, I think it is brutal and toxic. It is also, there are people that are there every single day trying to fight a good fight and leverage the powers of government to try to make people's burdens a little lighter and to make their pathways a little easier. And so they deserve our praise and our thanks for doing so in the midst of an environment that is being, headwinds that are being generated to try to continue to limit that, not just that ability, but to tear down the idea that government can help solve these problems. But without question, it's gotten a lot more toxic than even when I was there.
By the way, if you want to learn more about the projects, groundworkproject.com. The good news for you is I'm going to ask you a question you only have 30 seconds to respond to because we want to get to your friend, the district attorney from down there in Mississippi. How do you deal with the irony? You're just describing what your mission is there when your uncle is trying to undercut exactly this kinds of things that you and your family have been trying to build in those states.
Look, I think, from my perspective there, obviously, whether it's my uncle or anybody else, the idea that taking health care away from anybody is success is abhorrent. It's not true. And it goes against, I think, the very foundations that which our company aspires to be, I would argue, are founded on. We've seen headwinds before, and Scott will I'm sure talk about this. And look, I find deep inspiration from a number of the leaders that I've met in Mississippi. I think, Jim, when we look at this administration and we say it is a novel experience for us in Massachusetts to have a federal government that is fighting against the values that we hold dear. That is not novel in Mississippi. In fact, that's been the reality in Mississippi for more often than not over the course of our 250 years of history. And so what I take from my time there and getting to know Scott and others is the relentlessness of, hey, whether your government's for you or against you, the baby needs to eat, the kids need to get cared for, and communities need to be built. And so we are not going to compromise on that, and we're not going to let any excuse get in the way of that progress. And so get to work.
A few months ago, I go to an event in Cambridge, and I hear a guy that is running for the United States Senate as a Democratic nominee for the Senate from Mississippi. I didn't know that Cambridge was in the district, but nevertheless,
soon to be.
He was
gerrymander gets interesting.
That's right.
Gerrymander gets interesting.
Good.
That's right.
He is currently a district attorney in Mississippi, and as I said, the Democratic candidate for the United States Senate against the incumbent in Mississippi. Scott Colom, it's great to see you again. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, man, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on. Shout out to Joe Kennedy, man. That guy's a true champion of Mississippi.
Mississippi.
Well,
True champion of Mississippi.
thank you very much for coming. And we're particularly interested in talking to you because I think most of us up here in the Boston area don't really think it's Mississippi being that friendly to Democrats. But there's a lot of talk about you as a Democrat. So why are you running?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's because Mississippi deserves a senator that puts her needs first. Worries about health care and accessibility, worries about that single mother that can, whether she can afford groceries or not, worries about that person making minimum wage and struggling. And the great thing is people like Joe Kennedy over the years have been investing in the local organizing that's going to make a difference in this moment. It's helped me build the momentum to make Mississippi, to help Mississippi get the leadership it deserves.
You know, District Attorney, my understanding is you were almost a federal district court judge, which probably means you wouldn't be running for the Senate. What happened? You were nominated by the president. What happened?
Yeah, so I was honored to be nominated by President Biden. I got the support of the Congressman Thompson, and then I got the support, actually, the senior senator, Roger Wicker.
Republican.
The Republican, yeah.
And what happened?
So the junior senator, Cindy Hyde-Smith, she blocked me because she refused to turn the blue slip in, which is required to get a hearing. But, you know, Jim, she didn't do that just for me. There were 4 people that were nominated during President Biden's administration. She blocked 3 of them. She only allowed 1 to get a hearing. I'll let you all research what the 3 that blocked had in common.
Whatever happened to her, by the way?
I'm running against her. I'm about to take a seat.
So you've responded to this a million times. Is this like a retribution tour, like the president's on against his opponents? Why are you running?
Oh, absolutely not at all. You know, I'm a Christian. I forgive Cindy Hyde-Smith. And also, as a district attorney, I've prosecuted people who have done very horrendous things and have had to counsel survivors through that process and seeing them forgive people who, you know, killed their daughter, who did terrible things. So for me, not only as a Christian is it easy to forgive, but as a district attorney who has seen people forgive in much more difficult situations, it's easier for me to forgive. But it did force me to look more at her record because, you know, it was very instructive in the sense that I'm like, I got all this bipartisan support. It's very difficult to get senior Senator Roger Wicker and Congressman Thompson, Ben Thompson, and former Republican Governor Phil Bryant to agree on something. So I said, wow, I mean, I got this agreement. Let me look closer at her record. And I found that she's the type of, I wouldn't even call her a leader. She's the type of senator that is really the big problem in our country right now. She votes against what's best for Mississippi. You know, the tariffs, for example, they have been terrible for Mississippi. Terrible for the soybean farmers, terrible for small businesses, people that manufacture furniture. It's been awful for consumers struggling at the grocery store. But she supported it only because the president told her to. She's giving away our voice to the president, even though it's against what's best for Mississippi. Same thing with the healthcare cuts. I mean, Greenwood LaFleur Hospital, I was talking to a barber. He was giving me a haircut. And he was telling me about
giving you a haircut. What is? Excuse me. But go ahead. I'm sorry, District Attorney.
Yeah,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I got to keep it clean. I'm going to be a United States Senator. I got to keep it clean. But he was giving me a haircut, and he was telling me what closing Greenwood LaFleur Hospital is going to mean for the Delta. I mean, 300 employees are going to lose their jobs. That's going to take away economic development, economic vitality that's important. But it's also going to mean that the next closest hospital is going to be more than 30 miles away. And people are going to die as a result of that hospital closing.
You know, you were quoted somewhere in one of these stories saying Mississippi's all about faith, family, and football. Even though I see you play some pickleball, I guess you got some pickleball stuff in the back of your car. But anyway, I'm always curious if that's how people feel. A lot of people in Mississippi, faith, family, and football. The faith part always amazes me because it's not, you know, a Christian thing to shut down rural hospitals, to take away health care for poor people, to take away food programs for poor people. So how do these people that talk about faith, family, put those two things together?
Well, we have to make the campaign about those things. I mean, too often in Mississippi, the national messaging is what influences how voters view the elections. And for me, we're building momentum because we have a message that is about those values. And because, you know, the reality is every Mississippian wants affordable and accessible health care. They do. And the question is, how do we make the election about that? How do we connect the dots for them? How do we say, listen, the reason Greenwood-LaFleur Hospital is closing is because Mississippi never expanded Medicaid, right? That's we got to connect that dot. And the reason providers and doctors are leaving Mississippi is because the Medicaid cuts mean our hospitals cannot afford to pay them the wages to compete. And once you connect the dots for them, we're getting the momentum. That's why we increased turnout by 90%. We closed the gap by 20 points. And the voters in Mississippi, they're ready to go in a new direction. And I got to give a lot of credit to people who were supporting Mississippi when it wasn't popular. You know, Joe Kennedy invested in our state when people thought Mississippi didn't matter. And because of that investment in local groups, local people, I'm seeing the payoff. And what I'm doing is following along in that tradition by not making the campaign just about 30-second ads, but touching people, actually showing up at the festivals, showing up at the housing projects, showing up and doing the things that we used to do. We got away from.
District Attorney, can you stay over for like an extra minute or two? And Joe Kennedy, can you too? We're going to take a quick break. We'll spend a couple of more minutes with the Democratic nominee for the United States Senate from Mississippi. If you want to learn more about him, go to Colom, COLOM.com. We'll return with Joe Kennedy and the District Attorney in a minute.
"250 years ago, Massachusetts ignited the revolution. GBH News is bringing together the people, the places, and pivotal moments that took Massachusetts from colony to Commonwealth.
We all really think it's important to get the history out there.
There's a little bit of a feeling of being plunged back into history because you're right here where it really happened.
Discover the stories at gbh.org/America250.
Support for GBH comes from you. And Classic Harbor Line, offering a range of cruises for families, corporate gatherings, and sightseeing day sails throughout the summer in Boston. More at classicharborline.com. And Vivo Performing Arts, formerly Celebrity Series of Boston, where Boston stages come alive with classical, jazz, dance, and more. Info on season ticket packages available at vivoperformingarts.org.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy streaming on youtube.com/GBH News. We're continuing our conversation with Joseph Kennedy III, founder of the Groundwork Project, groundworkproject.com, and the Democratic nominee for the United States Senate in Mississippi, Scott Colom, Scott, COLOM.com. District Attorney, let me just, if we can keep you for another minute. I know what people are thinking who are listening, I'm guessing. The guy is really impressive. He's got a really interesting resume. He's a district attorney, again, nominated for a federal judgeship, stymied by the incumbent Republican senator there. But it's hopeless. There hasn't been a Democratic senator from Mississippi, I think, since 1988. Most recent poll I saw, I had to do a double take, had you within 3, 4, or 5 points of the incumbent. What's the realistic state of the race?
Yeah, I mean, the realistic state is that I have all the momentum. I mean, the poll showed I'm within 3 points. It showed that she had a 55% unfavorable, 53% won a new United States senator. The informed vote, I was actually up 1 point. And for me, it's really not about the polling because I was out campaigning. I mean, I'm a campaigner. If you follow me on social media, I campaign almost every day, listening to voters, because I think we have to center the voters in this moment. I think for too long, we tried to center the candidates and make it about like how great they can give a speech or what their profile is. But as somebody who listens to voters, the biggest thing we got to do in this moment is we have to gain their trust, because they don't trust people running for office. But because I did that, in the primary, even though we got very little attention, in the primary, we increased turnout by 90%. 90%. Wow. We closed the gap between the Democratic primary voters and the Republican primary voters by 20 points. And Jim, let me tell you something. This is so interesting because just recently, the chair of the Mississippi Republican Party was caught on a radio interview saying, the caller asked him, can Scott Colom beat Cindy Hyde-Smith? He said, yes. I mean, if you look at the primary results, yes, he can beat her. They have momentum. And he knows I did that without spending nearly the money that she spent. And it's because, like I said, we have a grassroots strategy. And we're blessed to have people, I keep saying this, but, Brother Kennedy gets a lot of credit for it because he believed in it when a lot of people did not believe. And he invested when a lot of people didn't invest. And that's paying off. And so when we win, a lot of people, you're right, Jim and Marjorie, they're going to be shocked. But I'm not going to be shocked. Brother Kennedy's not going to be shocked because we've been on the ground in Mississippi, and we know that we've been building momentum, and we're at a moment where, people are going to, it's a change election, and it's going to pay off.
Okay, Brother Kennedy, we get a sense of this guy right now, but you've seen him in action down there in Mississippi. What do you think?
Look, your reaction is what people in Mississippi see. I think they're also, they are hungry for change. They're hungry for representation. And look, you guys have been around politics and politicians for a very long time. When you see
he was about to say since before I was born, but he realized that was inappropriate.
Well, that's true. It was before he was born.
So, nevertheless, rolling right along. The difference when there's a candidate that has the energy, the desire, and the comfort to go knock on a door, and when there's another one that is hiding behind the power of incumbency and legacy party. And that, I think, is the state of this race. You've got somebody that is out there engaging with voters, wanting to inform them, eager to make the case and eager to make the change, versus another one that's going to say, hey, it's Mississippi, it's a Republican state, you all don't want the Senate to flip. I'm betting on Scott.
So before you go, the only bad news I encountered this morning, Marjorie and I'm reading rumors that Lane Kiffin does not support your candidacy. Is that true, District Attorney, or is that not true?
Listen, I can't say what I think about Lane Kiffin on public radio.
Okay.
So I welcome his scorn.
He's the former coach of Ole Miss who left in the midseason to go coach LSU, which is a cardinal sin, as we know. By the way, before you go, I want to say I was lucky enough to meet your father when you were in Cambridge, and we know a lot of the same people from North Mississippi Rural Legal Services who I worked with when I was a young lawyer, and your father is a gem, I should say, and please pass on our regards. It's great to see you, Scott Colom. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Thank you very much for being with us. We have been speaking with Joe Kennedy III, founder of the Groundwork Project. Joining us on Zoom has been Scott Colom, Democratic candidate for Senate in Mississippi. Thank you both for coming in.
Good to
Thank
see
you, Joe
Kennedy.
Kennedy.
Thanks so much.
Coming up, going to talk with former Public Safety Secretary Andrea Cabral about the Justice Department now criminally going after E. Jean Carroll. She's the 82-year-old woman that a civil jury found liable for sexual assault by Donald Trump against her. We're going to talk with Andrea Cabral coming up next.
Welcome back to BPR on GBH and NEPM. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan live in Brighton, streaming youtube.com/GBH. It's a little delayed, but never deterred. Now on Zoom, we're joined by Andrea Cabral, former Public Safety Secretary of Massachusetts, former Suffolk County Sheriff. Thanks for your patience. Good to see you, Andrea.
Good to see you. How are you?
Great.
We're great, Andrea. But I tell you, I thought I'm not a fan of the president, but
Oh.
I thought this was just one step too far. Now he's trying to criminally investigate and pursue E. Jean Carroll. As I just finished saying, she's 82 years old. She accused President Donald Trump of sexual assault. He was found liable in a civil court for sexual assault. And also, he was supposed to be paying her $5 million and then $85 million for defaming her. He has not paid her that money. But criminally pursuing her for perjury?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just laughing because you said one step too far, and I'm thinking, we are Boston Marathon's length past what is too far. But again, unsurprising, because the Department of Justice is no longer the Department of Justice. They are Donald Trump's personal law firm, and that is precisely why the current Attorney General is his former personal attorney. That never should have been allowed to have happened, but, like I said, one in a series. Essentially, what they're saying here is, when she was deposed in the civil lawsuit, she was asked whether or not any nonprofit had contributed to her legal defense, which is, you can ask that question in a deposition, and she answered no. And because to her knowledge, it wasn't true. 6 months later, her lawyers disclosed that there was a nonprofit funded by the guy, Reid Hoffman, he's the co-founder of LinkedIn, had paid some legal fees and expenses. There's absolutely no evidence that E. Jean Carroll ever knew about it or met with them or ever spoke to them. But when her lawyers realized that this was true, they made the disclosure to the court. And Donald Trump's personal attorneys in the civil lawsuit made an issue of it then. A 3-judge federal appeals court panel in New York dismissed the claim that she had lied, said, no, we don't find that she was lying. And when they realized that some of the legal fees had been paid by a nonprofit or somebody who owns a company, they disclosed it. So you're not harmed by it. You have the information and you can use it at trial.
I'm sorry, you continue and I have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just saying that, okay, that's the civil trial. That's private attorneys representing her and private attorneys representing him. The fact that the Department of Justice is going to go after her for lying in a civil case when the man that they essentially work for lies every single day, perhaps not under oath, but lies every single day and then some, is astonishing that our tax dollars are being used to go after someone who is the adjudicated rapist of this woman. This is, you're right. It's to me, like I said, it's one of many steps too far, but it is astonishing. I can't imagine any lawyer worth a damn putting their name or their signature to anything related to this. But yet every day, the people that he's hired seem to be signing off on these kinds of investigations and indictments.
By the way, for those reacting to when Andrea just said rapist, referring to the president, as we've said to you a million times about E. Jean Carroll, the technical finding under New York law by the jury in this case was sexual abuse. And the definition of sexual abuse in New York State equates to what would be rape had the same act been in New York. No, had he done it in Massachusetts. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Andrea, I'm going to do the kind of question.
Outliers there. A number of other states define digital penetration of an orifice of any kind by any mechanism as rape.
Yeah. This is the kind of question a little kid asks, like his or her mother and says, how can they do that? That's illegal. When I hear about E. Jean Carroll, we're going to talk about Abrego Garcia with our guests in the noon hour. The problem is Trump wins every one of these cases, and I'll say what I mean. It doesn't matter that down the line, Letitia James didn't have to worry about the prosecution, or that Comey the first time didn't worry, and probably the second time. They had to hire lawyers. They had to defend themselves. They had to go through the psychological trauma that you understand much better than we do because of what you've done for a living your whole career. So here's the naive thing that the kid would ask that now a grown-up is asking. So there's really nothing that can be done except following the same law that Trump and his people abuse just to get this dismissed a year from now, after Carol has probably spent another $1 million on lawyers and gone through more trauma by the guy who traumatized her to begin with. I mean, you know what I mean?
Right. And I think that you're right to a certain extent. So yes, we've said this many times on this show. They don't even really expect to win. Right? There are cases of all different stripes that his U.S. attorneys are bringing in a number of jurisdictions that have absolutely no chance of winning. All of the requests for the voter data, they've lost 30 of those cases, spending our money to go forward on them. And they don't necessarily expect to win, but the cases against Comey, James, and a variety of others, it is to put them through hell. Here's the difference, though, and what we're seeing now in a number of these other cases. The Southern Poverty Law Center has filed a motion saying that the case against them should be dismissed because it is a vindictive prosecution.
Yeah.
I assume E.G. Carroll will do the same. You have the judge in the Abrego Garcia case finding that the prosecution was malicious.
Mm-hmm.
What you're now going to start to see is that judge after judge after judge is going to make specific findings. What that does is that it completely eliminates the presumption. The reason why it used to be so difficult to bring a vindictive prosecution case against the federal government is because there was a presumption that they were acting in good faith in bringing the case to begin with. The DOJ has come before courts and lied and misrepresented and screwed up, quite frankly, on such a regular basis that judges are now beginning to say, I do not find that there is a presumption of good faith here. I find that it is a vindictive prosecution. And that, once that is taken away from the DOJ, that is a seismic change in how their cases are going to be perceived by courts. And now it shifts the burden on them to prove that the case was appropriately brought. Do you know how unprecedented it is for a judge to ask for grand jury transcripts?
Yeah.
At veil, because they have been, enough evidence has been put before them to make them believe, and in the case of James Comey, with Lindsay Halligan, and with a variety of other U.S. attorneys going to the grand jurors, the U.S. attorneys themselves putting their thumb on the scale and speaking to grand jurors personally, redacting information from grand jury transcripts, dismissing grand jurors who wouldn't vote for indictment. This kind of stuff has never happened before. And I think courts are appropriately horrified and are responding by saying, you don't carry the credibility that you once carried. So we're going to scrutinize everything you bring us until you can show us that this is an appropriate prosecution. That's a seismic change, and they all credibility.
You know, the other thing is, and maybe, I'm being naive here, but really quickly, just like this slush fund that could go to the guys who beat up all these cops, there's something visceral that I think the average Joe and Jane, unless they're totally MAGA people, gets. And I think there's something here, too, because so many women...
In the Carol case,
so many women have survived sexual assault of one kind or another. Nobody believed them. They never got to court, blah, blah, blah. She's also 82 years old, and they know about this case because it involved a sexual assault. They know he was running around the country saying, oh, I don't know her. She's not my type. I've never seen her before. So I think there's something, it maybe not be the slush fund level, but there's something really visceral, at least to me, I think about this, going after this woman again at 82 years old, that I hope resonates with people.
You buy that? We have 30 seconds. You buy that?
Well, I mean, we've said that a million times about a million different things, but I think that at some point, things do reach a critical mass. And so it's this plus everything else that we discuss here on a weekly and a daily basis. And it just will not hold after a certain point.
Sorry, this is truncated. It's good to see you, Andrea. We'll do a full thing next week. Be well.
Bye.
Take care. Andrea Cabral.
Okay, we have been speaking with Andrea Cabral, former Public Safety Secretary of Massachusetts, former Suffolk County Sheriff, and of course a BPR contributor. Up next, we're going to check in on what's going on with immigration. Now, this threat to those legal immigrants who are here legally, who are trying to get green cards. Amherst professor Ilan Stavans and Marian Albert, senior attorney at Lawyers for Civil Rights, are going to join us to talk about immigration. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR, GBH, and NEPM, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
If you're a GBH sustainer and you received a new bank or credit card in the mail recently, there's an easy way to update your information. Just visit gbh.org/update and keep your membership up to date. That's gbh.org/update.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Bernadine Sung Magasin at Dreamega International Realty, dedicated to helping buyers and sellers across Greater Boston, offering market insight and guidance through each step of the process. More at homesbybernadine.com. And Native Plant Trust, more than 125 years of commitment to protecting New England's native plants. More information about how using natives can help mitigate climate change at nativeplanttrust.org.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We are live in Brighton and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're going to be back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow with Dr. Zeke Emanuel, who is going to tell us how we can fix all our healthcare problems, or he's going to try anyway. At the library on Tuesday is the governor of the Commonwealth should be with us 11 to noon, Maura Healy. And at the bottom of the hour, we're going to talk about the latest going on with the BSO and Andres Nelsons that they are apparently going to get rid of.
Well, they said they were. We'll see what happens.
Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. We'll start this hour with an immigration check-in, as it's been almost 6 months since Alex Preddy and Renee Good were killed by ICE agents in Minnesota. Months since people took to the streets there to demand change. And as we mentioned yesterday or the day before, as far as we know, the federal government, in unprecedented fashion, refusing to share evidence to local county prosecutors so they could potentially move against the people responsible for the killings. Then last week, a federal judge dismissed totally trumped-up criminal charges against Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That's the Maryland man, you all know him, who was deported last year to El Salvador, that horrible mega prison, despite court orders barring his deportation. Reports of violence and inhumane conditions at a New Jersey ICE facility and others have sparked protests and a hunger strike. And last Friday, following on the heels of this savage assault on people who were allegedly the worst of the worst, even though we learned that that was not true, people who were here illegally, the Trump administration announced these new changes, which we'll discuss in detail, to the green card process, which just has potential for horrible consequences. Joining us now to discuss all this is Marian Albert, a senior attorney at Lawyers for Civil Rights. It's great to see you, Marian. Thanks for being here.
Yes,
and Ilan Stavans, professor of humanities in Latin American and Latino culture at Amherst College. As always, Ilan, thank you so much for being with us as well.
Such a pleasure.
So Marian, let's start with you. People that are trying to get green cards, they're here legally, and they're close to getting their green card. So what is this going to mean for those people who may be married to Americans or their kids are Americans, et cetera?
Well, not only what does it mean, what do they do? What are they proposing?
Right. So last week, USCIS issued a memo, which is basically a new shift, a pretty significant shift in policy. The memo basically reminds USCIS officials that the granting or adjudication of adjustment of status, which is the process where a foreign national who isn't already in the United States can process or apply for a green card. So now these individuals will be basically required to leave the U.S. and return to their country of origin to apply through the U.S. consulate abroad. And so basically what the administration is doing is that they're rebranding a process that was quite common and ordinary in the sense that, very routine, that many people use it as a way to adjust their status and obtain permanent residency, will now become a form of what they quote unquote called extraordinary and only granted with administrative grace.
So what happens if the country that you have to return to is, let's say, one of the countries on that list of, I think it's 37, where people can't, like Iran? What if it turns out,
right?
How do you get back in the country after you've gone back to your home country to apply for a green card?
Right. Well, I think that that's the biggest issue with the memo, right? That there's still a lot of questions. And one of those questions is, what are individuals who, for example, have, travel restrictions or bans because of the administration's travel bans? If they return to their home country or are forced to return to their home country to potentially adjust status or obtain a green card, basically what that's saying is that they won't be able to adjust status. Realistically, they won't have that pathway anymore. And so again, this is an extraordinary change of circumstances. It also gives the agency a lot of discretion in the way that they will be granting these applications now. And so we all know that when something allows for or grants a lot of subjective power, there tends to be a lot of arbitrary and inconsistent decisions.
One last thing about this is a lot of lawyers are saying that there's no way this is going to hold up in court. But in the meantime...
Yeah, Trump will never be immune from criminal prosecution either.
Well, exactly. So in the meantime, people that are in this situation, you know what you can do? You can tighten it a little bit. I'll show you how to do it.
Okay, let's keep going here while we're doing this. Can we keep talking while you're doing it? Go
I'll
ahead.
keep talking while I'm doing it.
Okay, thanks.
We tighten this for Miriam.
I understand that.
Anyway, the people that are in this situation right now, what are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to just hope that they don't get caught, or are they supposed to go back to wherever they came? What are they supposed to do?
Yeah, I mean, again, just to reiterate, I think that there's still a lot of questions about this, and that includes whether people who have a pending adjustment of status petition, whether this will apply to them, whether it will or not apply to them. And so there's still a lot to be determined, right? And so again, this change or this shift in policy was just announced last week. And I agree with you that I think that it's legally vulnerable and that there are ways to legally challenge it. And I think we should expect that it will be challenged.
Can you do big picture for a second, Ilan, Stavans? What's the message sent to people who are contemplating, as they have for decades and decades, coming to this country, the green card thing, the violence directed at just advocates, people like Good and Preddy, not to mention the people themselves. Finding out the good news is, as we discussed with Andrea Cabral, Abrego Garcia, quote, wins his case and the government is disgraced. But for 14 months, this guy was terrorized and probably bankrupt. What's the big picture impact on how people see us? And you know what I'm saying. What's the impact of that?
Absolutely, Jim. I think the large picture here, the word that comes to my mind is vindictive and destructive and disruptive, all those three words. This is yet another attempt to bring the immigrant population in this country to its heels. They destroy the patterns, the family patterns, the friendships, the labor relations that they have, send them back and not allow them eventually to come back. It's madness. It doesn't make any sense. I am myself a recipient of a green card when I came to this country some 35 years ago. Just imagining that in the process, I would have had to go back to Mexico and then return to the United States, it would have absolutely destroyed every path that I was hoping to have for myself. It's a war on immigration of the worst kind. And I am sorry to put it this way, but we are not ruled by a president that makes any sense. This is madness.
Well, it's not just a war on immigrants. We discussed this yesterday. To me, it's a war on the economy. We learned about what the negative impact of going after people who are here, quote, illegally had to be on the economy. Add people who are here legally applying for green cards. Where are people going to get workers to do their jobs so the economy doesn't continue to do with the toilet here? Can we now go back small picture? You explain the law to people and you represent them. I'm talking to Miriam now. The fear, though, is got to be so overwhelming. You could explain to them, for example, what you're doing is perfectly legal, and I assume they'd say, well, how about Abrego Garcia? What happened to him? How about all these? I mean, Ozkirk Turk in Somerville. What do you say to people who hear you on the law but are driven by the fear that has spread throughout our country?
Right. And I think under this current administration, that's also the goal, right? With a lot of these different policy changes is to cause a chilling effect in all of our communities. And so, I mean, I would say first, in regards to this specific topic, is that this memo did not change the law. This did not change whether people could apply for adjustment of status while being in the United States. If that is still a viable option because they are eligible for it under the statute, they should apply. It might require them to present more evidence, but I think that people shouldn't be discouraged from that and should continue to move forward with their process, obviously with the advice of counsel. But
it doesn't mean they're not scared. I mean, they may trust you, but it doesn't mean that in their lives there is not fear all around them, an uncertainty kind of thing.
And these could be people that are at Amherst College or anywhere else coming over. A lot of students come over here with these temporary situations, but they're here legally.
Absolutely, Marjorie. And even when they are sent home, and there has been a chilling effect, many of universities and colleges have not had the number of international students in the last year or two. Many of them are struggling financially as a result of that. But the image that we're projecting internationally is that we are a very untrustworthy partner. That you apply, you are imagining yourself following certain laws, and along the way those laws change, and you are in the middle of nowhere. You don't know where you belong. Many of these countries are bowing to Trump in Latin America, Honduras and Ecuador and Colombia. And by bringing those that are immigrants, that doesn't mean that they are allowing them to thrive. It's the opposite. They're just opening the doors. Many of them are Cubans, Venezuelans, the example of Mexico, who are not able to find new jobs, who are struggling economically and emotionally. The situation is actually global. It's not only national, but it all starts here.
Marianne, can I ask you the same question I asked Andrea Cabral a couple of minutes ago? My thesis, which I hope people like you or Andrea can disprove, but I'm not sure you can, is even though the people from Todd Blanche, acting Attorney General, on down, were disgraced by the judge's ruling when the Abrego Garcia charges were. By the way, we should play
the sound.
Here is the well, I don't mean departed like dead, but the former Attorney General Pam Bondi announcing charges against Abrego Garcia. Here it is.
The grand jury found that over the past 9 years, Abrego Garcia has played a significant role in an alien smuggling ring. They found this was his full-time job, not a contractor. He was a smuggler of humans and children and women.
And obviously he was none of those things, as we learned in the judge's ruling. But
it's unbelievable.
But I guess my point, I know my point because I made it to Andrea too, is Trump won anyway. Because he ruined the lives of a human being and those who love him and work with him and whatever for years. For a year and 2 months, but that is going to continue. They do win even when they lose, don't they? Or am I being too negative? Do you know what I mean? Technically, Abrego Garcia won his case, but look what he had to go through to win his case. Not only the mega prison in El Salvador, coming back, being called a human trafficker by the Attorney General of the United States. Am I wrong?
Well, I agree with you that there are human costs and human consequences, right, to all of this. And like you said, even though at the end of the day he was able to win his case, there has been a cost to that and a great harm that will probably persist beyond just today, the day that he won in court or whatever, right? Like he will have to deal with the trauma of being in that mega prison for who knows how long. His children and family members, right, will have to deal with that trauma as well. And so I agree with you that, unfortunately, even when we are able to defend these things in court and we are able to succeed in court, it still obviously has a human consequence. And so it's important for communities to continue to speak up and protest and, advocate for, what's right so that these things don't continue to happen.
That's the voice of Marianne Albert, by the way, from Lawyers for Civil Rights, and we're joined by Ilan Stavans from Amherst College.
I just want to touch on something Ilan just said, and the Associated Press was reporting on this too. The Trump administration has deported nearly 13,000 Cubans and Venezuelans and other nationals to Mexico, which which is not obviously their home country. Apparently, Cuba and Venezuela don't want to participate in this. So people that have lived in this country for decades are going back to a country that is not where they came from. And they're, as you said, Ilan, a lot of them are older, and they can't, too old to get a job or find a job. Or, I mean, what are these people supposed to do?
According to the Department of Homeland Security, about 600,000 immigrants have been expelled from this country since Trump took office for the second time. Many of them are children, they are elderly, they have been sent to countries where they don't speak the language, where they don't know anybody. That is not a solution to a problem of immigration. It's just complicating the problem even more. And I want to remind the audience of yet one more important aspect. During the first Trump administration, at least Trump was surrounded by 2 members of his cabinet that were immigrants. In this current administration, nobody is an immigrant. Rubio's parents came to this country in 1956. They came from the middle class. He is born in the United States. It's a totally different picture. If he had somebody whispering in his ear about compassion, maybe he would understand the human cause and the human consequences of all this.
You know, he's married to an immigrant. You aware of that? What's she whispering in his ear?
He doesn't like her, I guess.
You know, by the way, you just mentioned the people from Cuba and Venezuela being deported to Mexico.
Yeah.
I should have mentioned this earlier. I assume people know this. Abrego Garcia, who is Salvadoran, they wanted to send him to numerous countries in Africa where he had absolutely no connection. Can we deal with your academic side of you for a second there?
Oh, no.
Every time we talk about a crisis in this country and a diminution in small d democracy. I've mentioned this a million times, but I'm going to say it one more time because it's so impressive. The woman responsible for the 1619 Project, I heard speak at Babson a while ago, Nicole Hannah-Jones, and when the last question she was asked by a reporter from the Washington Post was, because she had said that in the first 8 months of the Trump administration, he had undone, it was either 64 or 66% of the major civil rights legislation of the 60s. And the question from the Washington Post reporter in the audience was, how long is it going to take to get us back once Trump's gone? She said 60 to 70 years, and everybody in the room almost fell on the floor. Let's assume a decent humanitarian Democrat is elected president, is sworn in January of 2029. This is first for you, Ilan Stavans. This doesn't all just get reversed by executive orders and changes in people who run immigration and ICE and CPB. I mean, what happens?
But I think, for starters, we should be very aware that there's no going back, that the reputation impact is dramatic, that people see the United States with suspicion, and that the deep wounds that the Trump administration has inflicted to the American dream, to the American texture of this society, will take many, many decades, if ever, for us to recover. I think we will need to start anew. We will need to revisit certain aspects, but going back to what we had before is, in my mind, simply impossible.
Do you agree with that?
Well, I definitely agree with her position. And I would add to what Ilan is saying in that I think that even then, it allows us or gives us a new opportunity to recreate things in a new way, and gives us, hopefully, the opportunity to create things in a way that is more sustainable and more equitable for more people in the future.
A rare end on a hopeful note. Thank you for that, Marianne. Ilan Stavans, great to see you too. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming in and for the work you both are doing here. We've been speaking with Marianne Albert, Senior Attorney at Lawyers for Civil Rights, and Ilan Stavans, Professor of Humanities and Latin American and Latino Culture at Amherst College and publisher of Restless Books. Thank you again.
What's your website at Lawyers for Civil Rights?
www.lawyersforcivilrights.org.
Great. Thanks so much.
Okay, coming up, we're going to give you an update on the groundswell of support for ousted BSO maestro Andres Nelsons. We'll bring you that next. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browder. You're listening to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, well, today's college grads are entering a tough labor market. How tough exactly? And what can history teach us about what's in store for the class of 2026? One thing is for certain, they are sick of hearing commencement speakers talking about AI. Former Google CEO Eric Schmidt.
Interesting.
Tough crowd. That's the Curiosity Desk. Today at 1 on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the law firm of Davis Malm, knowing the lay of the land, not just the law. Learn more at DAVISMALM.com. Davis Malm, lean, agile, strategic. And Cambridge Trust, a division of Eastern Bank, offering business and personal wealth management and private banking services, investing more than $240 million in local communities since 1994. More at cambridgetrust.com.
Welcome back to BPR and 89.7 GBH. Margery Egan, Jim Browdy, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. Tomorrow, Dr. Zeke Emanuel on fixing the nation's healthcare system. And on Tuesday, the Governor Healy, joins us for an hour from 11 to 12 at the library to answer your questions and ours. You know, in March of this year, the Boston Symphony Orchestra abruptly dismissed music director Andres Nelsons, one of the world's most celebrated conductors, announcing he'd be gone after the 2027 Tanglewood season. We have gotten a ton of you, even people who are not regularly going to the symphony there, saying, please continue to give us updates, and we're doing the best we can. So here's another one. The board at the time cited that the BSO and Nelsons, this is a quote, were not aligned on future vision. No one understood what that meant then, and I feel confident saying no one understands what that means almost 3 months later. We have repeatedly invited the board chair and president and CEO of the BSO to join us. They've declined or now actually ignored all of our invitations. Regardless, we will give you the best update we can. Shortly after the announcement, the chair of the Players Committee, his name is Todd Sieber, he's a double bass player with the orchestra 38 years, in this powerful statement on behalf of the committee, urged the reversal of the decision to terminate Andres Nelsons and raised a number of really important questions to which there has been absolutely no response. No response to the people who are the orchestra.
Yeah.
Then 2 weeks ago, Elizabeth Klein, who's associate principal flute in the orchestra, expanded on those questions in a piece she wrote for the Berkshire Eagle newspaper, obviously in Western Mass. And what Marjorie and I have done in the last hour or two is we took some of Elizabeth's questions from her op-ed, and we thought it'd be useful to share them with you. So, Marjorie, do you want to read some of them?
Okay, here's the first one. Were all the trustees on the board informed in advance of the time, place, and agenda of the meeting determining Nelson's contract termination? Was barely a quorum, as few as 22 of the entire board of trustees, 42, even present for that vote?
I would say that's a fairly important question. What's the next one?
Was the board under the false impression that the players would support Nelson's departure? How did the board come to believe this? Was the board's vote to terminate Nelson's contract based on this false impression?
Now, can I add my own question that is not
Certainly,
from Elizabeth's piece? If only a partial board took this critically important vote, and again, that's a question that's been unanswered, or if they took the vote based on misleading information about where the players stood, then is this an ethical way for any organization, particularly a nonprofit in Massachusetts, to be conducting its business? So with all due respect, I'm adding a question. What's next?
Okay, I got two more.
This is all, we have three more actually.
Three more.
And they're from, again, from Elizabeth Klein's terrific piece in the Berkshire Eagle.
Okay. How did the board determine that Andres didn't support the strategic plan? Did the board ask if he would be willing to stay in Boston for additional weeks, conducting concerts and participating in more donor and community events? The next one. Was the board negotiating a quiet exit with Nelson's, as they said, as far back as September, as the New York Times stated in a March 13th article? Nelson's indicated to the players he had no idea that he was being dismissed until February, all those months later, just after the board had voted to terminate his contract.
Can I just make one comment about that, about the September thing? I've said this on the air before. Not only was Andres with us on air in September, but Chad Smith, who's the president and CEO, who will not join us now, was with Andres. And in that same September is praising Andres to the skies And by the way, not even a response to a question, just on his own.
Kind of free form.
So, I mean, that sort of undercuts the notion that, well, whatever. So that's some piece of information. How about the last question?
Here's the last one. Many of our most passionately loyal audience members are devastated that Nelson's is leaving and have spoken about their intent to stop attending and cancel their subscriptions. Why are Smith and the board so unconcerned about alienating our current devoted audience?
Now, let me tell you, these are just 5 of, 10, 12, really, I thought, well-crafted, important questions that Elizabeth Klein raised in her piece. We didn't have a chance to read them all. You can Google Elizabeth Klein, Klein, and Berkshire Eagle and read the whole piece. Now, shortly after Klein's piece ran, Barbara Hostetter, who's the chair of the board, who, by the way, has done a lot of great things in Boston. She and her husband, Amos, are founded the fabulous Bar Foundation, which has done incredible things
aberrational
in our community. But she continues to refuse to answer these questions. She wrote to the board and board of advisors right after Elizabeth Klein's piece appeared. You have that in front of you.
Yes. BSO leadership.
This is Hostetter to the board and to the board of advisors.
Correct. BSO, as in Boston Symphony Orchestra, the leadership is currently drafting a response to address the questions Elizabeth raised. Please refrain on answering them personally. We will share the response with all of you.
Well, in response to that, let me say, so far, not much sharing, as far as I know. Crickets, nothing. Not to the board, not to the players, not to the community. And this is a community asset. Shortly after the BSO's announcement that they were terminating Andres Nelson's, Mayor Wu was on our show.
Yep.
And I saw Mayor Wu play in the concert for the city.
Great.
She played Mozart.
Yep.
It was just beautiful with Andres there. Here's what she said about Andres Nelson's.
I'm very sad to, I've only had a little bit of an opportunity to see Maestro Nelson's up close, but even just how kind he was, how thoughtful and connected he has been to the BSO musicians and to our city. He's a real treasure.
He is a real treasure, and the orchestra is a real treasure, a community treasure, a community which deserves answers to very basic questions and is still waiting. So let me just end, Marty, by repeating.
Yep.
Barbara Hostetter and Chad Smith, President and CEO, are welcome here any day. We haven't encountered something like this before. All we want to do is pose the questions that members of the orchestra, members of the public, and if they can explain how he was not aligned with their strategic vision, maybe minds will change. But as of now, I would urge you to read what Elizabeth Klein has written in the Berkshire Eagle and ask those same questions yourself.
Okay. Thank you, Jim.
We'll keep updating you as we learn more, too.
Coming up, always an awkward transition.
Boy, this is a really awkward transition.
Okay, this Thursday is Am I the A-Hole Day? So we're going to open the lines in just a couple of seconds, 877-301-8970. You can call or text. Today's Am I the A-Hole prompt involves husbands doing things the wrong way. Like, well, in this case, it's the wife actually doing things the wrong way.
According to him.
Mopping the floor
According to him.
the wrong way. That's right. She's mopping the floor. You know what he's doing while she's mopping the floor, Jim?
Criticizing her.
On the couch.
Yeah.
He's sitting on the couch. He probably has his legs up at the coffee table, too. Okay. Wives doing things the wrong way while husbands sit on the couch and criticize them. That's what we're going to talk about up next. I'm Marjorie Egan. He's Jim Browdy. You listen to BPR 89.7 GBH, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Everybody expects some rowdy fans at sporting events, but what about rowdy drones?
Every major public gathering, from a World Cup match to an America 250 celebration, is now a drone environment.
I'm Scott Detrow. As the FIFA World Cup nears, the FBI is training law enforcement to stop a growing threat in the U.S. skies, malicious drones. That's on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Mass General Brigham Health Plan, providing helpful digital tools, world-class providers, and coverage that help you live in the moment. More at massgeneralbrighamhealthplan.org. And Newbury Court, serving Concord, Massachusetts for 30 years as a not-for-profit continuing care retirement community dedicated to older adults. More at newburycourt.org.
Welcome back to BPR and 89.7 GBH. Jim Browdy, Marjorie Higgins, streaming live on youtube.com/GBH News. Back at the library tomorrow, Dr. Zeke Emanuel, who is going to talk about fixing the healthcare system. He's been an advisor to presidents and done a ton of things in the healthcare world. Tuesday at the library, the governor joins us, Governor Healy, for an hour from 11 to 12. So it is time for Am I the A-Hole? Today's prompt comes to us from The Guardian's You Be the Judge column. It's a domestic dispute between a husband and a wife who disagree on the best way to clean their wood floors. The husband claims to be big on vacuuming, but the wife loves to mop, Marjorie. They have pets. The vacuum doesn't actually clean the floor, she argues. It just gets rid of the visible dust and dander. But when she takes that extra step to be clean, he has ideas about how she should do the mopping. He thinks mopping just moves dirty water around and doesn't actually clean anything. She's annoyed at his sideline criticisms from the couch. Who is the a-hole here? And let's be honest, we all have a system. I'm particularly persnickety, by the way. I've said this to you about loading
You're
dishwasher,
persnickety?
doing the laundry, or how to
Really?
mop, even though I've never mopped in my life, just like this guy. But how do you navigate? It's not just about mopping. It's a larger question. How do you navigate household duties where your partner, your spouse, your roommate has a different, let's call it, system than yours? The number is 877-301-8970. Call or text. Who's the bigger a-hole here? The person who does the thing, even if they don't do it perfectly well, or the sideline critic with all this armchair device who, again, is doing absolutely nothing. So you start. Who is the a-hole? I
Well,
know who you think
clearly
is,
the
obviously.
husband is the a-hole here. As Sue just texted in Brookline, she's absolutely right. Anytime my husband criticizes any chore, it automatically becomes his chore. And I think that's the way to go. He's sitting on the couch telling her that she's mopping the wrong way. His idea, he's upset because she has to put the mop back in the bucket, squeeze the water out as you do with the mop, take it out, and mop some
Putting
more.
dirty stuff in the, I mean, I happen to agree with him on that. I'm sorry.
Okay, so do you change the dishwater, the dishwater in the sink every time you wash a new dish?
Yes, I do. I do. It takes a very long time. Last night I did it. It took me 4 hours to wash 11 dishes.
Exactly. You squeeze the water out. I do mop a lot, and mopping does a much better job than vacuuming, especially if you've got like gunk on the floor. He's sitting on the couch criticizing her, but he won't mop himself.
He's doing the thinking,
He thinks they should go
apparently.
out and buy some snazzy bucket that has one compartment for the water and one compartment for the water you've just used. I mean, have you ever seen a bucket like that in
Yes,
your life?
I have. I own one. Okay, can I just say something here?
What?
People occasionally think that I artificially just take a position. I mean, on most levels, I agree with you.
You have a passion about
If you're-
mopping?
If you're not doing the work, then what? However, as I said a minute ago, I do have very specific.
You said you never mopped in your
views.
life.
No, but I have specific views about mopping and things like that.
You have views from
And so
afar.
here's my question for you.
Yep.
Should I, because I'm not quite in the position of this husband here, but I do have strong views about these. Should I suppress them because I don't want to do the work, or should I offer constructive
I think,
criticism
as Sue
about that?
in Brookline said, it's very simple. If you don't like the way your wife is mopping, then mop yourself.
Well, forget wife. How about close friends?
That's right.
Occasionally, I correct something you might want to do
Occasionally.
or say. Should I not mention those things, even if I know it'll improve the product of what we're doing? I mean,
well, I think you should wait till I say what I was going to say before you tell
what
me.
if I know
said
what
it
you're going to? I know
backwards.
what you're going to say.
You know what
So
I'm
why
gonna
wait?
say.
Why lose time?
A
877.
preemptive correction. 877.
Some hostile
301.
listener says, does this topic also apply to co-hosts? I mean, really, that is so demeaning.
You know where I always feel bad, though? I always
What's
feel
it?
bad, and you see this a lot. If anybody out there has young babies or the young babies themselves or young grandkids
Yeah,
themselves.
the young baby should call in.
Yeah, the babies can't call in,
Yeah.
obviously.
They can't. Okay,
Thank
just
you,
wanted to be
Jim.
clear. Thank you.
I thought the babies.
That was the point that I was trying to
didn't
make.
think the babies were going to call, actually.
get it.
But, the husband tries to help out, changing
Yeah.
the diaper
Sure.
or helping out. He can't nurse the baby, but give the baby a bottle, whatever
Sure.
it is. When the new mom criticizes the husband, it discourages the husband because I think sometimes they do try. And if they don't get it exactly right, leave them alone. That's my philosophy on taking care of the little babies.
Let me tell you, my position on things like this is if someone has fair and constructive criticism of anything I do, either at home, work, or out in the world, as you know, no one takes it more graciously and
No, you take
constructively
criticism
than
well.
I do.
You take criticism just well.
8-7
Very well. Just this morning you said to me, that's my opinion, Marjorie, and you're wrong.
Obviously, it's my opinion. I think you're wrong. I meant that respectfully.
It wasn't an opinion. It was a fact kind of matter.
Well, can I also say, since I wasn't going to bring that up, you were wrong. So, what? Okay, as the woman may have been about the mopping. So, just so people don't think I generally agree with Marjorie. Yeah, the guy is a problem.
Okay,
but if he has a strong feeling, he should be able to express it. I guess is what I'm saying. 877-301-8970.
Andrea in Dorchester says only boomers use mops. We should get a Swifter.
I have a
Swifter too. The Swifters are very nice, but I think sometimes in certain situations when it's like dog and cat gunk, you have to go for the
old mop.
Pick up the big guns. Jim.
How many people have mops in their houses anymore? Is that anybody have a mop anymore? Wait, is one of those sponges with the squeezy thing? Is that considered a mop, or is just the thing with like the curly Q thing?
You have to hold it. It's like a broom.
I know you have to hold it, but what is at the end of it? Does it have to be the stringy things?
The cloth.
Yeah, but what if it's a squeezy one where you just squeeze the sponge out in the sink, and then that's a mop
that's
too?
That's what you do with the mop. You
that's a
squeeze
mop.
the water out of the mop.
Do?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
It's very good. You get a lot of pollen. You know that if you get pollen, they are very great with all that water to get the pollen off your porch. Or
you know what I use instead often? One of our colleagues just reminded me. The ShamWow. I am very supportive of the slap chop and the ShamWow. For you young out there, Google
is he still around,
as seen
the
on
ShamWow
TV.
Guy? I don't know.
He actually he died only 49 years ago. So
he did not.
No, I'm kidding. Amy in Rhode Island.
Hi, Amy. What do you think?
Hi. So I would say there's some shared blame here. Definitely a-hole sitting on the couch and criticizing, but I understand having separate compartments. So my suggestion is what I did, which is look on eBay Marketplace for a product called a narwhal. Yes, you have to pay money for it.
How do you spell it?
You can find it for like narwhal, like the animal.
Oh, NARWHAL or HWHAL? Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Jim wants to buy it.
It's got separate compartments for the dirty water, the clean water. All you have to do is load it up, plug it into an outlet. It goes. It also vacuums, and then both of them could sit back, put their feet up, and work on their marital bliss. And, you know, the woman has to take care of her mental health here. We're all struggling, and maybe the narwhal would be a solution.
Wait a minute. Are you saying this narwhal will mop without the person?
It's a robot, but it costs, I just looked it up, robot. It costs $1,299 on sale, Amy. Really? I mean, that's...
Right.
Go ahead.
But I found mine on Facebook Marketplace for $300.
Okay.
So look on Facebook Marketplace. Sometimes, you know, they're on there. I did not pay $1,200 because I agree that's outrageous. But just keep an eye out. Put an alert on your Facebook Marketplace. You find one, pick it up.
We're going to check it out. By the way, they're only $549. We're bringing it down on Amazon. So even though, of course, we don't buy on Amazon anymore.
One of our texters explained it this way.
What is it?
This is mop-splaining.
Well, it is actually. Well, it is a mansplaining. It's a mansplaining kind of thing.
Well,
depends on how you say it.
He's sitting on the couch. I mean, I think in some circumstances you might want to go over and take the mop and, you know, empty it out in his head.
Can I say maybe that? I mean, I understand that impulse. But,
yeah, you know
but I do my best thinking on the couch. Actually,
we didn't tell the guy his idea of how the floor should be mopped.
Yeah, go ahead.
He says what you should do is you should just get the bucket,
spill the whole bucket,
pour the whole thing of water on the floor, and mop that way. That's his brilliant idea. Okay, Carrie from Providence. Hi, Carrie. What do you think?
Hello.
Hi. So the root of all evil is wood floors.
Wood floors.
We had a perfectly blissful relationship until we put in brand new sparkling wood floors in our entire house. So now I feel like I should be sweeping these floors and then mopping them with a Swiffer. My husband thinks that they should be just mopped without any type of vacuuming or removing of the sand. So we're at constant odds about this mopping. So about 3 months ago, I said, you know what? I have had it with the mopping. I am no longer cleaning the floors in this house. And for 3 months, I have not swept, vacuumed, or mopped. And it's not going to get done until we come to some type of resolution.
I think you're taking the correct position.
You do?
Yes. Why should you be doing it and having him constantly tell you you're doing it is wrong? I'm with you, Carrie, all the way.
I before that, I would actually try to clean when he wasn't home so that we wouldn't have a conflict.
Well, you know, another possibility is you could sell your house and buy a narwhal. That's another...
Did you look up the
Or-
narwhal?
I
Could you spell
looked it up.
please?
I said it.
GNAR?
Well, actually, no.
How do you spell it?
Narwhal, like, thank you for your call, Carrie. That was great. A narwhal, like an animal, like the one, I think it's got that little horn on its nose thing.
I don't know how.
Has an H in there. But the narwhal, like the robot vacuum and mopper, it's a combo.
Would you spell it, please?
There's no H in it. NARWAL.
Oh.
Okay. Okay.
Someone's correcting me. I called the Swifter a Swifter. It's a
Now,
Swiffer. Swiffer, not a Swifter.
Whatever. So it's close enough. And people knew what you're talking about. Now, let me just say this. Every time we listen to our team, when they type us a note like this, here's the note they typed, which is a recipe for disaster. We actually have a young baby on the line. Let us know if you'd like to speak to him. The answer is we wouldn't like to speak to them, but we'll do it anyway because you guys think it's amusing. Here it is, and it's not our fault. Go ahead. Okay. I mean, really.
The baby's complaining about the way the husband has done the,
No,
has put on the diaper. That's the whole thing.
Okay.
Now here's the texture. This is how you stay married for a long time.
What's that?
I don't tell my husband how to mow. He doesn't tell me how to mop. We know how to stay in our lanes to save our marriage. Yeah. That's very ecumenical, Jim.
Let me just say, I've never mopped, never mowed, I really...
What do you do?
I do. In all seriousness, nobody, and I mean this, I really mean this, so don't look at me like what an a-hole. I don't think anybody's ever figured out how to load the dishwasher like I do. And not only do I load it beautifully so there's maximum cleaning, I load it in a way, and I don't think it's like a chess move, so that it's most easily unloadable after the fact. You have to think ahead. You can't just think about putting it in and getting it clean. What's going to be the easiest way, the least likely to get a knife in your hand, in your palm, to get it out? And I think about both things, so I'm pretty good at that.
So you told me one of your secrets, which of course is to put the big plate, small plate, big plate, small plate. And that's one of your secrets. Would you like to share
I actually never told you that, but I do that, actually.
Yeah, you told me that.
The other secrets I have will remain secrets, actually.
I assume you put the knife handle above and point it down so that you don't cut yourself.
I might not. I mean... Marty, do your own research.
You're like some grandmother with a recipe for chocolate chip cookies we can't give away.
Okay. Yeah. And I take that as a badge of honor. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go to John.
By the way, before you go to John, an anonymous says, I use a Swiffer or Swifter, as they call it, on my teeth to prevent gingivitis. Now, if you weren't listening earlier in the show, you wouldn't get that, and that's the way it is. So
yeah, we were talking about the tragedies of gingivitis and your boss dropping dandruff on your head.
No, and somebody calling it gingivitis when it's gingivitis.
That's
Thank
right.
you. Okay, John in a car. What's up?
Hi, John.
Good day.
Hi.
Good day. I'm just coming back. From an inspector. I'm a floor inspector.
Oh my God! Fabulous.
We love it.
So what's your take?
So I'm dying laughing. I get in the car. I want to help her stay married when she was talking about mopping the floor and not mopping the floor. Unfortunately, her husband is correct about not putting water on the wood floor.
Really?
But the cleaning process is you're supposed to spray a microfiber with the wood cleaner onto the microfiber and then put the microfiber on the floor as to avoid the wood absorbing moisture, hence splintering and all kinds of problems.
Wow.
Okay, what about that engineered wood, John? Same
thing.
Same thing.
Same principles applied. And I laugh because I feel like a consumer protection guy when I'm out in the field here. Mm-hmm. I mean, I see these bucket, steam clean your floors with steam. It's the worst thing in the world for wood. There's products that I won't mention that are marketed to be used for cleaning floors. And they're the worst things for floors. They have surfactants and stuff that are in them that causes the wood to expand and splinter. I mean, it's just, I shake my head half the time when I look at this stuff.
By the way,
so that's my story.
Well, don't go away. Say one more time.
They didn't say they had a wood floor.
Oh, yes, they did.
They did?
Oh, I think they did. Say one more time so people can get it. How do you deal with a wood floor? One more time.
All right, cleaning a wood floor. I'll try and talk slow.
No, you're not the problem. I just want to repeat it. Go ahead.
I'm actually from Fall River, too, so we have...
Oh, my God.
Go ahead.
That's great.
Go ahead.
Actually, Margie might know the company, but I'll explain it. It's when you clean in a wood floor, the idea is to spray the cleaner onto the microfiber itself, and then put the microfiber on the floor to clean the floor, to dust the floor.
Okay.
Any liquid applied directly to the floor will cause problems. They have surfactants in them and whatnot that cause the wood to expand along the edge and splinter.
Hey,
Yeah.
John, you're not going to be in Cambridge this weekend, are you, or what?
Actually, my son lives in Cambridge. I'm there a lot on Putnam Street, but we'll stay away.
Stop by the house, John, if you don't mind. John, thank you. That was an excellent contribution.
That was great.
He's a Fall Reeve guy.
He's a Fall Reeve. Well, we know a lot about floors.
We
in Fall River. There's
do.
no question.
You do.
There's no question about it.
Yeah.
But I would repeat, the people in this Emma the A-hole thing do not mention what kind of floor they have, Jim.
Can I tell you
so
something?
John's advice was brilliant for the hardwood or the engineered hardwood, but we do not know what it remains a mystery.
I spoke to some people, Marjorie, before the show while you were preparing or allegedly preparing for the show, and it's a wood floor.
It's a wood floor.
It's a wood floor.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
That's it.
Murray from Newport, which is
Murray
not
in
far
Newport.
from Fall River. What
That's
do you
a very
think,
good point.
Murray
Hi.
in Newport?
Hey, Murray.
Well, hey, thank you very much. And Marjorie, I'm on your side.
Thank
and
you.
Jim, you're going down on this one.
It's going down.
The reason why I say that, I've called you before. I was in the Navy for 30 years.
Yeah.
And swabbies, that's what they call us. We know how to swab a deck.
Oh, go ahead.
And
Then
the
let's hear
gentleman
it.
is right.
Go ahead.
All right. So this is how you clean or swab a floor first. And again, the Navy's got this down. We sweep. We sweep fore and aft and get all the dirt, heavy stuff off.
Yeah.
Sweep. Then you have a putty knife in your back pocket, and you get your nice soapy water and such, and then you wring it out, and then you swab, and you turn and rub that floor, and when you get it to a certain area, then you go back to your bucket, and you strain it out, and then you go back in there again, and you can do that, and you can get a pretty good passageway done with that, notice passageway. And then if you got some gunk or something on the floor, gum, you've got your putty knife to scrape it up. And then after that, now, again, what we're doing in the military is that you got tile floor, linoleum.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, sometimes it's so that's what we're going to be doing there. And then, don't forget, you got to put down a coat of wax.
Of course.
Then you buff it.
God, how long does that take,
yeah,
Murray?
That's a good question. How long does that take?
Well, and again, when you're in the military, it takes as long as it takes. And again, you do a good job. And then we have inspections.
Sure.
If the job isn't done right, when they come along, you got to do it again.
Okay.
But you usually pick it up good. The military you can eat off those floors, Jim.
I will.
That you would.
I will eat off any floor. Let me just tell you right now. So here's the question, just to establish your bona fides here. If you had, I know you don't have a precise number, 30 years swabbing the deck or whatever it is, how many floors do you think you've swabbed in your 30 years in the Navy, Murray, roughly?
Okay. Well, again, we don't have floors in the Navy. We have decks. And
Decks, that's what I meant, of course. How many decks?
I'm going to say 50,000 decks.
50,000. Well, that does qualify you.
I would say you are an expert.
Murray, that was a
an
spectacular
inspiration.
contribution to the show.
I
Thank
tell
you very much.
We are grateful to our armed services.
50,000 decks. Decks he swabbed.
He's the man, Jim. One of the UPS drivers got your number.
What?
He said Jim's talking about all his duties that he doesn't do at home because he knows what Jim's job is, and Jim's job is to make the dinner reservations.
Well, that would be true. I mean, what is that ridicule? Do you think I take that as an insult? No, I take it as a compliment.
You should start doing a little side blog on all the restaurants in Boston because you know all about every one of them.
Marjorie, when we have to go out either with our colleagues or our bosses,
you know where to go.
Or who makes the reservations every time?
You do.
Okay, let's assume in our time together we've done 100 of those. Okay,
Yep.
How many times have you made the
Never.
reservation? None.
None.
Okay. Okay. So it's sort of
'Cause
like
I
the
don't
guy
know where to
sitting on the
go.
couch.
I don't know
then
where to
don't
go.
criticize.
I go to the same places all the time. I go to the place across the street.
Yeah. Okay. Good. That's a nice story. Now, Marjorie's never once made the
I have
made
not.
a reservation.
Jim, you know all the great places.
She
to go.
occasionally shows up though, which is really fabulous. The
Tom in Abington. Hi,
yeah.
Tom.
Hello, Tom. We're talking about. Well, everybody knows what we're talking about. Go ahead.
Hi, folks. Long time listener, but love your show.
Thank you much.
The issue is a bigger issue. The issue is a bigger issue. It's conflict resolution. The complaining when anyone complains about it, you're a bit of an idiot, and you shouldn't do that. And the way to do it is you sit down and say, "Listen, we disagree about this. I think I'm right. You think you're right. Let's call up the local hardware store, the people that install the equipment. Let's get the specific floor because each floor is different. And say, what would you recommend? You would buy that decision. Because if they have problems here, there are problems. How do you discipline your kid? Do I want corporal punishment or not? You sit there and complain about it, or you just have something and call an expert in to tell you what to do.
By the way, that is brilliant. Talk about a Solomonic thinker. Tom, thank you for your call. Rather than fighting, you call in like Murray from Newton or the Fall River guy or an expert at the hardware store. By the way, Zoe also made a wonderful point.
What?
I trust Jim to make the reservations, Marjorie to order the drinks. You both have jobs.
That's right. I might
really...
have made the reservations last time. So last time we went to the Stockyard, which is across the street.
Oh,
I might have made the reservation for that because I love the Stockyard. And they do have great drinks at the Stockyard. And if you get something like a martini or Manhattan, they put a little side thing of ice so that you can keep the leftover. You like pour a little bit into your glass and they keep the rest in the ice so it's nice and cold. They also have great rolls.
Were you there when we had martinis with Buddy Cianci's ex-wife?
No,
I
think you were
one
there
of the
by
great
yourself.
nights ever. With the woman who played her in the play, who's brilliant, and the Globe reporter who wrote the story, which I think was his wife's first interview about life with Buddy.
As Texture says, you could never mop floors. Do you know why, Jim?
No, it's not going to be complimentary.
I'm an anchor man.
Oh, that's so funny. That's really, I mean, you see me laughing right here. It's incredible.
Jim is an anchor man. Did you know that, Edgar?
What?
Jim is an anchor man.
Well, I was in my time. Do you have a mopping
There he goes.
position?
Yeah,
Like-
so
Anchorman.
I
Yeah,
feel like the initial debate here was: do you vacuum or do you mop?
No, it's not. It was like a woman is mopping.
Yep.
The husband who never mops
Criticizing her.
he's giving advice
While sitting on the couch.
about whatever. And the question is he an a-hole because he should shut up if he's not going to do it?
Yeah.
Or who's the a-hole? So what's your answer? You can speak to vacuuming versus do whatever the hell you want.
My thing, the debate, mopping has to happen every so often.
Wow.
You've
Exactly.
got to mop every so often. The real debate is between the day-to-day cleaning. Do you do that with a broom or do you do that with a vacuum?
What's the answer?
Well, the answer is you do it with a broom. Obviously.
Absolutely.
Why? What do you mean obviously? Why?
Because vacuum cleaner it doesn't get the stuff up the way. I challenge you to if you vacuum, you can then go back with a broom, and there's still going to be a bunch of
Those
stuff on the
tough
floor.
bristles can get up those
and
little
you need a
things
good
that are
vacuum.
stuck on
You
the floor.
can't go cheap with the broom either. You need a good broom.
Good broom.
Did you figure out why there are 12 eggs in a box yet or no?
No, it's a mystery it's a mystery that will never be solved, Jim. Even AI cannot give us an answer
It's
to
not
that.
cheaper by the dozen. Wasn't that the idea?
Well, that was after the fact. What are you doing there?
Well, speaking of AI, right now, or not, I don't know if it's happening right now, but commencement at Harvard today, right? And
Yes.
so the big question is, will Conan O'Brien mention AI? And if he does, will he get booed, which is happening all over the place during commencements? Commencement speakers bringing up AI, and they're getting booed.
With
by,
one exception, you see Steve Wozniak,
Yeah.
the co-founder of
Apple.
Yeah,
was
Apple.
not booed. I don't remember
He was
why,
in the,
but I guess
people
we'll
think
learn
he
in the
gets
next
screwed
few
by
minutes.
Steve Jobs. He was in the
Maybe.
garage.
Yeah,
with
they
Steve
sort
Jobs,
of,
and he
yeah,
didn't get the
exactly.
credit.
Well, that's a pretty good topic.
I'm sure he
there.
got the money. Yeah, and we will be talking about it with Joan Donovan.
Oh,
so
we love
can't
Joan.
beat that.
She is the
Can't
best.
beat that.
Can you ask Joan about the egg thing? Too,
I'll
while
ask her
she's
about the
there?
egg thing. If
Thank
anybody
you.
And
has
ask
an
her
answer,
how she
does.
feels about mopping. What
Okay.
she's with the broom or the mop.
I think it's a good idea.
Or Swiffer.
We asked the tough
I
questions
just
on
threw
the
out all my
Curiosity
notes.
Desk.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. You can keep up with us 24/7 way our podcast, or check out our very great TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Tomorrow at the library, press play analysis with GBH's Adam Riley and Callie Crossley. Live Music Friday with East Boston Zoom Mix. They are great.
Oh,
They are great.
Bioethicist Dr. Zeke Emanuel talking about healthcare. Martha Sheridan of Meet Boston ahead of a busy summer in the city, including, of course, the World Cup. Our crew, Zoe Matthews, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, Ariana Gonzalez. They all said wonderful things about Jim today. Wonderful things about Jim. Our stream today includes Brad Lewis and Bill Francis. Our engineer is John McCall Parker. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. Stay tuned to the Curiosity Desk with Edgar B. Hurt III, which starts right after us here on 89.7 GBH. The Culture Show with Jared Bowen starts at 2. He's live from from New York City.
Yes.
He's going to speak with Tony Award nominee Melissa Errico on her new book, Back to Barbara, revisiting Barbra Streisand's songs, influence, and theatrical pull. Everybody agreed with me on the Am I the A-hole thing. I just want to point that out before we go, Jim. Nice try.
Yeah.
I'm Marjorie Egan.
Okay, that's
I'm not a
ridiculous.
baby, I'm a man.
Well, maybe.
I'm an anchor man.
That was me a few years ago. Doesn't sound like me, but it was. I'm Jim Browdy. See you tomorrow.
Protesting too much,
Bye.
one might say.
From the stories of centuries past to discoveries that will define our future, How Did We Get Here's, how-tos, and more. Journey with us down the rabbit hole on the Curiosity Desk. Coming up next on GBH 89.7.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Harvard Museums of Science and Culture. 4 museums a short walk from Harvard Square, with exhibits ranging from stunning glass flowers to ancient Egyptian mummy cases. Learn more at hmsc.harvard.edu. And Revision Energy, a renewable energy company building and servicing solar, batteries, and air source heat pumps for local homes and businesses for over 20 years. Revision Energy. Revision your power. More at revisionenergy.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on the Curiosity Desk, after a historic 88-day government blackout, the citizens of Iran are able to access the internet once again. We'll talk about the long-term impacts of these modern-era blackouts, plus what official White House social media accounts gain by posting brain rot memes. Then, today's college grads are entering a tough labor market. We'll see what history has to say about what's in store for the class of 2026. And if you're in need of something a little soothing to end the hour, that's also at least slightly terrifying with a dash of peculiar sensuality, we've got just the thing.
There is a quiet place deep within you.
We're going deep into the always delightful GBH Archives. It's all ahead this hour on the Curiosity Desk.
Live from NPR News, I'm Lakshmi Singh. The annual rate of inflation's gone up. The Commerce Department's out with a new report showing the rate of 3.8% last month compared to a year earlier. On a monthly basis, prices rose 0.4%. A federal judge in Washington, D.C. has refused to temporarily block an executive order from President Trump. It calls for restricting voting by mail. NPR's Hansi Lo-Wang reports that another judge in Massachusetts is preparing to rule on the same order in the coming weeks.
U.S. District Judge Carl Nichols found it's too early for an emergency ruling that would block Trump's order because the order's main directives have not been carried out yet. This leaves in place, at least for now, Trump's latest executive order that tests the limits of the president's power under the Constitution. The order calls for the federal government to create lists of adult U.S. citizens in each state. It also calls for banning the U.S. Postal Service, which is a financial supporter of NPR, from delivering mail-in ballots to anyone not on those lists. Democrats and voting rights groups argued in court the Constitution gives power to state legislatures and Congress, not the president, to set federal election rules. Since Trump signed the order in March, it's been unclear whether and how it would actually affect voting by mail, which has continued for this year's midterm primary elections. Hansi Lo-Wang, NPR News.
The Israeli military says a Hezbollah drone killed an Israeli soldier in northern Israel, and Israel is widening its offensive in Lebanon. Here's NPR's Daniel Estrin in Tel Aviv.
The soldier was killed and 2 other soldiers were wounded in the Hezbollah drone attack on a military area of northern Israel. The Israeli military is struggling to thwart increasing Hezbollah drone attacks, which have killed several other Israeli soldiers in recent weeks. In Lebanon, Israel says it has carried out a wave of attacks on Hezbollah targets around the southern Lebanese city of Tyre. Israel warned residents to leave nearly the entire city. Israel and Lebanon have been holding rare direct talks to try to end the fighting. Israeli and Lebanese officials are expected to meet again Friday at the Pentagon. Daniel Estrin, NPR News, Tel Aviv.
The Justice Department has charged a Google employee with using confidential information to bet on the site Polymarket. More from NPR's Bobby Allen.
Michele Spagnuolo is an Italian Google software engineer residing in Switzerland. Federal prosecutors say he gained access to internal documents showing who would be the most Googled person of the year in 2025. That led to $1.2 million in profit on Polymarket. He now faces commodities fraud, wire fraud, and money laundering charges. He had an initial court appearance in New York and has been released on bail. Last month, a U.S. military official was charged with profiting off of classified information about the capture of Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro. President Trump has vowed that prediction markets would thrive in his term. Despite the 2 cases, his administration has taken a mostly light touch approach to the controversial industry. Bobby Allen, NPR News.
This is NPR News.
Good afternoon. With the latest from the GBH newsroom in Boston, I'm Craig Lamolt. 3 years after she resigned in disgrace as the U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts, former Suffolk DA Rachel Rollins has made it official. She's seeking the Suffolk DA's job once again. In a new video, Rollins contrasts her vision for the office with that of her predecessor and incumbent, Kevin Hayden.
We're going to be open and transparent, no invite only, and we're going to continue innovating because that's what justice requires. Maintenance is not good enough, and neither is the status quo.
Rollins resigned after a pair of federal investigations found she'd committed multiple ethics violations, including trying to influence the race to replace her as Suffolk DA. She'll face Hayden and fellow challenger Linda Champion in this year's DA race. There's a new free app for Massachusetts residents to gauge the air quality in their communities, including pollen and ozone. It was developed by the Healthy Air Network for the Public Health Institute of Western Massachusetts. It provides real-time data based on a network of low-cost air sensors in local neighborhoods. The Institute's Jessica Collins says the app initially focuses on the Pioneer Valley due to the high rates of asthma in the region.
The majority of the sensors are in Hampshire and Hampden County, but we will be adding more in Worcester and in Berkshires. And of course, if folks across the Commonwealth want a sensor, they can have one put up, and then the app will work for them with local information.
The Air Watch app is accessible for free through the Healthy Air Network website or at Google Play or Apple stores. Some showers expected this afternoon. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from Schwab, offering the Schwab Teen Investor Account, where teens can gain hands-on investing experience. It's co-owned by parents and teens, so parents can monitor the account while teens learn how to invest. More at schwab.com. This is NPR.
Welcome to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Why don't you join us there if you can? We're back at the Boston Public Library tomorrow. We're going to meet some local spellers competing at the Scripps National Spelling Bee in Washington, D.C. Closer to home here, well, I guess around the world, it's been a busy week in the world of the World Wide Web, AI, misinformation, and more. There's a lot to talk about when that person that you have in studio with you is the one and only Joan Donovan, so we're going to do just that. Joan is the founder of the Critical Internet Studies Institute, a BU assistant professor of journalism and emerging media studies, a Curiosity Desk contributor, and, of course, the co-creator of the beaver emoji. Welcome back, Joan. Great to see you as always.
Stoked to be in studio.
So let's begin in Iran. Actually, big news in Iran this week, which is that after 88 days, 12 weeks, something like that, internet service starting to come back online for Iranians.
Yeah, this is big news, and we'll see if it holds. During war times, one of the first things to get attacked, of course, is telecommunications. And so whether it's the phone lines or, Wi-Fi towers or cell towers, these are the kinds of things that you look to take out right away. But in this case, the Iranian government was also suppressing the ability for people to get information, right, to share information, to organize resistance. And so baked into this ban was also the suppression of information, which caused a lot of chaos on the ground, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
A lot of people were very scared. Businesses had to shut down. It was really affecting their own economy. And one of the big reasons why you shut down the internet, though, in times of war, if you have a feeling that the public is going to get organized against the state, is really to shut down any kind of resistance. On top of that, there's a great book written by Phil Howard back in 2010 on the digital origins of dictatorship. And he looks at the adoption of cell phones and the internet throughout the Middle East. And what he finds is quite interesting in the sense that telecommunications policies really favor the government over the businesses. As well, there was a lot of fear in government that populations would develop a transnational identity, that young Muslims would start to see that different Muslim identities exist, and there's
Yeah.
different ways of being in the world, and of course being exposed to the West as well through the internet. And so it's not just that they're trying to suppress information coming in, but they're also trying to suppress the exploration of one's own identity through information.
What does it mean at this point, if anything, for people, yes, people in Iran, but also people outside of Iran in terms of information flow and what's happening there? I mean, are we learning things that we didn't know a week ago?
Of course. So when you start to get the testimonies from people who are showing images of the devastation in certain areas of town, they have sharing images of brutality, of state-sponsored brutality, of the kind of deprivation that people have been experiencing in Iran, the conditions of hospitals, etc. And so when you get enough information on the ground, then internationally, journalists as well as civil society organizations, that is human rights advocates, then can start to get involved. But the suppression of information was really making it hard for anyone outside of Iran to really trust what was out there without this firsthand evidence.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, because of disinformation online, you have to be very careful about what you share and what you say is true.
Well, exactly. This was going to be my next question. So if information has begun flowing, presumably disinformation has also begun flowing.
Yeah, and I think that it's going to take us a while. Obviously, there's, the American media and the Trump administration is kind of obsessed with the Strait of Hormuz conversation. But I think what we're going to find over time is more and more everyday average Iranians post online that the devastation is much more widespread, and that unfortunately, because of the way that social media operates, it's going to be really important that journalists actually get in and investigate who's behind certain claims, behind certain accounts, really try to verify the provenance of any video or audio that comes out that seems to contravene other evidence that we've already accumulated. And I think ultimately, though, the pressure was on the Iranian government by the economy, by the citizens, that this was untenable. It's shutting off the internet these days is tantamount to shutting off the electricity. It's commerce can't flow, money can't flow. It really does hamper any kind of public life.
Listen to the Curiosity Desk. We're talking with Joan Donovan from the Critical Internet Studies Institute. Well, something we do know the provenance of, the authorship of, a new encyclical. Pope Leo,
Yep.
and my fellow Villanova alum, dropped his debut encyclical this week, Magnifica Humanitas, Magnificent Humanity, and one of the, basically squarely focused on AI. Did this surprise you?
No, because he had been talking about AI and labor for quite some time. And he had been, in some ways, prepping the field for his major teachings on what is to be done about the moment that we're in, contemporary scientific findings, technology is on the rise, but there is no bigger discourse than what does the future hold. And of course, these AI evangelists have really filled in the place of religion by
I was going to say, note you use the word evangelist.
Yeah.
Let's hear a little. This is Pope Leo over the weekend in a speech talking about the encyclical and its release.
Artificial intelligence needs to be disarmed. The word is strong, I know, but deliberately chosen because this moment needs words capable of attracting attention, awakening consciences, and indicating paths forward for humanity.
I mean, that's huge. It disarmed is a direct reference to Palantir and OpenAI. And of course, Pope Leo was joined by one of the co-founders of Anthropic.
Yeah, which was a little
so
weird, right?
Let's get into this
Yeah.
because what we're dealing with now are two visions of the future of AI.
Yeah.
You have the technocracy, which is Peter Thiel and Alex Karp at Palantir, Elon Musk, this idea that we need to put AI at the center of government and use it essentially as a weapon. We have to be monitoring people nonstop. We have to be collecting data on them. It ties directly into the moment that we're going through around data centers, and the broad public pushback against them is immense, and it crosses party lines. And so Pope Leo steps in because here we have these warring factions. You have the U.S. government aligned with Palantir and OpenAI to build autonomous weapons with AI. That's the disarm part. And then you have Anthropic, which has been trying to forge an identity for their company through things like Super Bowl ads, where they kind of make fun of what it's like to talk to ChatGPT as a therapist, and then it inserts an ad, in the middle of the conversation. And so Anthropic is
positioning itself as the
good
moral and moral
AI
company. Yeah.
And they, and so they line up with the EU and this big broad push towards regulations. Of course, Anthropic was named as a supply chain risk by Pete Hegseth when they refused to turn over the code and allow it to be weaponized to create. And when I say autonomous weapons, I'm talking about, drones with bombs attached and, robotic dogs with machine guns on their back. Yeah. So, it's a very dystopic thing to even speak of. And so what the Pope is really trying to interject is a major institutional support for a moral footing in AI.
Yeah, and something that really strikes me too is a lot of this encyclical seems to be contemplating what a human is. There's a lot about just basic human dignity in this, and we are at the very beginning of a phase in human existence where I think, in a way we have never had to before, we are facing a real grappling with our understanding of what a human is.
Yeah,
as these AI sort of machines, at least as they're being presented to us.
It's the hype and hope paradox. So we saw this very clearly in the development of the human genome, this idea that if we unlock the human genome, we will instantly have personalized medicine and no one will ever have cancer again.
Right. Oh, and people will be able to go to the store and say, I want a kid with blonde hair and blue eyes. And, right.
So all of that eugenic thinking that went into genomics that really pushed the whole field forward and pushed forward the field of data science itself, scientific data science, and this idea that more data is better comes out of the Human Genome Project, surprisingly. And what I think, is at the heart of the Human Genome Project was also questions about theft. And do you really own your blood tissue and your samples once you give it to a hospital? And, there was all kinds of things that were going on related to the hijacking of Native American DNA. And so here you have this same kind of claims about extrapolating and quantifying the human in order to create these magnificent beasts, right, that can work all day and never need to eat. Another version of this that was a more micro scale is the way that they marketed automatic teller machines, ATMs, was to say that women, were unreliable, they would get pregnant. So to get rid of the bank teller, you should just get an ATM, right? And that was the ad, was that the human herself was fallible, and that this was the way forward. And so we've always seen this machine conversation come to the fore. And also there's a long history in computer science in the 80s and 90s around this term artificial life. Yeah. And computer scientists at Los Alamos literally believed through the Tierra project that they had birthed a society inside the computer that would randomly generate other organisms and interact with other organisms and change its environment. And they thought that if they pulled the plug on the computer, it would kill the civilization.
Yeah.
Right? So this idea that computers are somewhat sentient is born of computer science trying to emulate and simulate life.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that we understand that within all of this, just to get down to ground truth, these things are not sentient. They don't have emotions. There's no actual connection between large language models and truth or knowledge or meaning. They make up somewhere between 20 to 50% of information when you talk to them.
Yeah.
There was a great article in Wired yesterday where a fact checker fact checks AI, and you realize that you're being sold a magic trick. You're being sold math as
it's
language.
Said with confidence. I mean, it's using the techniques that a con man uses, right? It's saying you look great today.
Exactly.
That is such a smart question, and then says with confidence, it's this.
Yeah, and it's really appealing to people who are in administrative work because let's be honest, there is no purpose in writing another email.
Yeah.
There is no meaning in that lifestyle of writing policy, and so there is a place for that kind of mechanical writing style or using it to generate, things of very little value or consequence. But, generating it to write a letter of recommendation for someone is just hollow. Using generative AI to write a college application, it just rings hollow now. And these companies are stepping back even and saying, don't send us your CV if it was written by AI.
Speaking of college applications and AI hype, one group that is not, wholeheartedly buying into the hype is recent college grads. Here's a little sound of some commencement speakers getting booed at university campuses.
The rise of artificial intelligence is the next industrial revolution.
AI is rewriting production as we sit here. Deal with it. Like I said, it's a tool.
The question is whether you will help shape artificial intelligence.
That was Gloria Caulfield at the University of Central Florida, Scott Porchetta at Middle Tennessee State University, Eric Schmidt at University of Arizona. Not a hearty welcome.
No, and I think there's a really great clip by Steve Wozniak, who's one of the founders of Apple, that came out and said, he's going to come out and he really wants to talk about AI, and then he pauses and then says actual intelligence, right? And I think, that's one of the most important things that we have to reckon with today is that young people don't like this technology. They don't want it to be inserted into everything that they're using. They're seeking out ways to remove it from their lives.
Do you think that's because they see it as a threat to their potential jobs, or do you think that it is something more fundamental inside of them at that age in this time period where they're like, we don't want this?
I think it's somewhat both, right? I think about it like a forced trend, or you're trying to force something into society, like the movie Mean Girls, stop trying to make fetch happen.
Yeah.
Right? So maybe it is going to be something that, the commercial generative AI products, like, the ones that generate video or the ones that generate text or audio, these are really awful technologies. So young women experience them different from young men, whereas young women are horrified by getting made into deep fake porn.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not just that the job livelihood is on the agenda here, or their future is going to be very unbalanced by this technology, but also that it's actively harming them individually. And so these kinds of things we have to reckon with. And as we learn more about who's using AI for what purpose, we start to learn, okay, in this case, it was used to help someone figure out a more efficient way to hurt themselves, or this one helped figure out how the best time to do a school shooting. These are real things that are happening as a result of these chatbots being available. Someone had, and so the devastating stories of these families, which I will not get into here, really are the things that young people are experiencing as a consequence of AI. And so I think that the discourse about, oh, they don't want it, they're bratty, they don't understand it, doesn't reflect what they're actually going through, trying to adapt to it. And I experienced this as a professor as well, which is that I want my students to learn. I want them to struggle. I want every midterm to taste like a cold pizza, right? Like, like it's not going to be the best. And that's because we're training, right, in school. And so that's the hard part of it, is I think young people's views on this have been completely discounted.
All right. As it is often the case with you, Joan, I feel like we're just scratching the surface, and yet we have to let you go. But the good news is you will be back. We've been speaking with misinformation researcher Joan Donovan. She's the founder of the Critical Internet Studies Institute, BU Assistant Professor of Journalism and Emerging Media Studies, and a Curiosity Desk contributor. Joan, as always, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Up next, we've been hearing that the current entry-level job market is one of the worst in decades for young college grads. We'll take a look behind those headlines and revisit a couple other times in history where we saw a similar pattern. This is the Curiosity Desk. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Jared Bowen. Tune into The Culture Show for daily discourse on the arts and culture scene, and join us for what is a continuous conversation about the state of the arts with the most interesting thinkers, innovators, and creators in the region and beyond. From the poets to the painters to the power brokers who hold the purse strings. It's all here on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And Newport Mansions, protecting, preserving, and presenting the best of Newport, Rhode Island's architectural heritage. Proud sponsor of GBH Music's Jazz Now event, Ray Charles Tribute with Greg Abate, Wednesday, June 3rd at 7:15 at GBH Studios. And Native Plant Trust, more than 125 years of commitment to protecting New England's native plants. More information about how using natives can support pollinators at nativeplanttrust.org.
You are listening to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. We're also live at the Boston Public Library tomorrow, free to anybody who wants to come down and see us. Today is a big day just down the street from us in Harvard Square. It's commencement day for the Harvard class of 2026. And if you're a recent graduate or the parent of one, you may have caught some headlines that Gen Z is entering the worst entry-level job market in 37 years. 37? Like, how are they measuring that? How true is that? And is this just the latest tough turn through a perpetual cycle in American history for young people trying to find their first career job? We're going to get into all of that right now with two guests. Nick Juravich is an associate professor of history and labor studies and the associate director of the Labor Resource Center at UMass Boston, and Elise Gould, a senior economist at the Economy Policy Institute. Nick and Elise, thank you for being with us. Welcome to the Curiosity Desk.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, Elise, I want to start with you. Okay, is this the worst job market in 37 years? And if so, how so?
Yeah, I'd have to say no. It is not the worst job market in 37 years. Certainly is the case that the unemployment rate has been ticking up over the last couple of years, and more so, certainly for young college grads, for young workers in general. When there's weakness overall, oftentimes young workers have it worse than other people. Just like other historically disadvantaged groups, they sometimes feel that pain more acutely. So it is not the worst. It has gotten worse over the last couple of years, but it is still, doing better than we were, let's say, coming out of the Great Recession.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. I wonder if you could take us into this a little bit more when we say it's worse. Like, I think about, if you're a musician and someone says, that's a bad song, you might be like, that means nothing to me because I hear that song, I think the composition's good, but the playing's bad and the singing is beautiful, but this, the bridge is poor, right? As an economist, when you hear something like it's a tough job market or it's a bad job market, you must think that is meaningless. We need to get into the aspects of this. Some of it's good, some of it's bad. So can you take us into this particular sort of moment in time, this job market now, and talk about the aspects of this that you think are important and what are the good signs and the bad signs?
Yes, absolutely. So I think when we look at the overall job market, there's two indicators that people tend to look at. One is, what does job growth look like? And we're talking about payroll employment growth, so wage and salary workers. What does that look like? And we have seen a slowdown in job growth over the last year or two. Is that a problem on its own? Well, if you're approaching full employment where people are working, you might not see job growth. We also have net immigration slowing. So you don't need as many jobs because of policies of this administration. We don't have as many immigrants looking for jobs or working or even coming into this country. So that would change what you think of as good job growth. So it's been pretty decent, although it has slowed down. The unemployment rate is another key measure that has been ticking up, as I mentioned. And so that's one to keep an eye on. The one I prefer over both of those is the share of the population with a job, or the share of the population that you would think would be working, all else equal. So maybe those that are between the ages of 25 and 54, we tend to think of those as prime working age people. That has remained resilient. So that measure has not gone down, which I think is interesting. So it is still a pretty solid labor market. The measure that has the most weakness that I'm most concerned about in general and for young people in particular is the hires rate. And the hires rate has been falling over the last couple of years. The hires rate is pretty weak. You might almost say that it's depressed. People are sitting tight in jobs. They're not quitting and looking for better opportunities. And employers are sitting tight and not doing additional hiring. And that, I think, is the biggest culprit that has made it hard for young people to break into the labor market today.
Can we break young people into, two very broad categories, which is to say, is there anything that's particularly challenging about this particular market for college graduates in particular versus young people in general?
Well, when I look at both of them, you see weakness. You see the unemployment rate rising for those with a college degree. So I'm looking at 22 to 27-year-olds, those people that have just come out of college or are graduating now. You think about, what are their prospects? That unemployment rate has been rising, but also for people with less than a 4-year college degree. So who went to high school, maybe some college, maybe an associate's degree. Their unemployment rate is also rising. So there doesn't seem to be anything particularly unique about college grads versus other young people who are getting hit with some weakness in the labor market today.
Is that a change historically, which is to say, I don't know, in 1965, there were presumably fewer college graduates, therefore probably more of a premium on having a college degree and therefore maybe a little bit more power in the job market versus 2026?
Yes, I think that you've hit the nail on the head. I think that when you think about power in the labor market, a college degree is losing its edge. It's losing its edge in terms of a sure thing to have a job and a sure thing to see better wages than they would have if they hadn't gotten that college degree. So the college wage premium has been faltering some over the last 2 decades, I would say. So that added advantage to having a college degree isn't as sure of a thing as it had been in the past. As the cost of college has been rising, that becomes an increasingly difficult proposition for many young people today.
Nick, we're going to bring in this conversation in just a second. Elise, one more question for you. We were just talking with Joan Donovan about AI, college graduates, and their reaction in some places to the rise of AI and the hype of AI. What do we know and not know about AI's impact on where things stand right now and all of the stuff that you were just talking about?
So it certainly is the case that young college graduates are more likely to work in what we would consider AI-exposed occupations. So that's going to be true for young people with a college degree versus those without a 4-year degree. They're less likely to work in those what were considered AI-exposed occupations. But what's interesting is that young college graduates are no more likely to work in those AI-exposed occupations than other college graduates. So if you're older with a college degree, you have the same likelihood of being in these AI-exposed occupations. So there's nothing unique about what is happening with those young college graduates. And I don't think the evidence has been compelling thus far that it has been causing job loss. I don't see that in the data. The occupations that many young people are in, predominantly in, have actually seen job growth over the last couple of years when we've seen an expansion of AI. So I'm not seeing it in the data. That doesn't mean that won't happen in the future. And that certainly doesn't mean that there isn't anecdotal evidence out there of many people struggling. I think that is absolutely the case. If you ever have an unemployment rate greater than 0, there are a lot of people out there who are looking for a job, and that is, that is real. And again, I think that depressed hires rate, it is no, it's no worse, again, in the industries where young people are more likely to work, that the hires rate has fallen for them, not even as much as it has fallen for, let's say, where non-college young people tend to work. And so I think that I'm not identifying AI as the culprit as much as I think this overall weakness that is making it very hard for them to break in.
All right, Nick, we're going to bring you in here and try to get a little context on this particular weakness and put it in some historical context. When I started with Elise and said, is this the worst job market in 37 years? And she said, no, you had a face, which made me think you wholeheartedly agree. She mentioned the Great Recession in 2008. Maybe we start there. How is this moment like and unlike 2008?
That's a great question. And I think, part of that face is that's the job market into which I was seeking my first job.
I see. Yeah, I shouldn't have put words in your mouth. Go ahead. Yeah, clarify your position.
But I think it's a recent analog, and it's an important one, because I think coming out of that recession, we saw a real divergence in the fortunes of college graduates, and particularly those who could, make a lot of money developing apps, and people who went to work on platforms that made employment increasingly precarious, increasingly unprotected, classified workers as independent contractors and the rest. And so I see that divergence as a moment not unlike this one in some ways, because you have the rise of a kind of new organization of labor through technology, what we in labor studies call automation. But what, of course, is different about AI is that it does seem to threaten the livelihoods of people at elite places with degrees where they expected to go into, jobs that are exposed. As Elise said, they're the kind of spreadsheet heavy world of management consulting at the entry level, or iBanking, or these sorts of things. So I think there is a difference, but also I think in these moments of recession and then recovery, we often see a kind of diverging set of fortunes as new technologies and the ideologies of those who control them shape the new job market.
Okay. Well, let's take a look at some, if we're talking about, automation, changes in the way that we organize things, there are a couple of times in history that come to mind. One being, this seems to parallel it to a certain extent, or at least folks who are somewhat AI evangelists draw a comparison to, the rise of computers and what we all know now in retrospect was a dot-com bubble that burst. And so as you look at this current moment, again, I sort of ask, and both of you, I'd be happy to have you weigh in on this. Can we talk about how this moment is or is not like that kind of dot-com burst in the late 90s, early 2000s, and what happened there?
Well, I might compare not just the burst, but the bubble that preceded it to this moment and to the 2008 recession as another case where you had really divergent fortunes. So, the 90s are often celebrated coming out of a kind of early 90s recession as a moment of growth, but it's very unequal. And NAFTA, and particularly the sort of opening of trade that follows, really devastates American manufacturing jobs. I mean, this is when we see real numbers of American jobs fall off a cliff, which is devastating, especially for rural areas, for people without college degrees in terms of their prospects. And that's happening at the same time that we see the first wave of a kind of a tech-driven economy emerging. And so while there is a lot of job loss in that dot-com bubble, there's also, I think, an emergent economy of haves and have-nots that sort of continued to grow. And I'd be curious to hear Elise talk about this, as I'm sure you have the numbers on that.
Right. I mean, I think that when we think about any kind of technological change, or we think about change in the economy, as you said, due to trade or, other policy, we're interested in looking at, what happens on average to the economy, but we're also looking at what happens to inequality. I think you really hit it on its head there. Who has the power and who is able to keep their jobs, and who are the capital owners that and who is, where is that inequality going? And so for many typical workers, we've seen, and this isn't a new phenomenon over the last couple of years. In fact, we've seen some reduction of inequality over the last 10 years because the economy has been tighter. And that has meant that employers have had to work a little harder to attract and retain workers. We're seeing a little bit more weakness in the last year or two. And so some reversal of that. But for much of the last 5 decades, we have seen increasing inequality and more people at the very top amassing a larger and larger share of the economic pie. And so I think that power dynamic is really important when we think about the introduction of a new technology like AI. Well, who is going to have the power? Are workers going to be left behind again?
You listen to the Curiosity Desk. We're talking with UMass Boston professor Nick Juravich and EPI senior economist Elise Gould about the current job market for young people and new college grads. I wonder in this case, I think, and I'm sure this is not accurate or 100% true, but I think there is a notion, generally speaking, that if you look back through history, that the job losses or technological changes that hurt workers generally over time it hurts blue collar workers more than it hurts, I guess if you go way back, your landowners or whatever it is, or white collar. But in this case, it does seem like AI, to your point, it's college grads, it's more white collar workers that are maybe exposed to this disruption. And is that particularly different? And does that impact the way you find us all talking about this? Is that unique or has it always been a mix?
Well, speaking historically, we could probably pull up examples that are, relevant to white collar positions being threatened in a number of cases. But I do think that in our recent past, this feels new. There's been a lot of discussion over the last decade in our politics of the divergent fortunes of non-college graduates and college graduates, and also how that's been regionalized, growing metros versus, people really suffering in places where industry has gone away. What I also think is interesting, though, thinking historically, is we should ask not just what is happening on the sort of technological or on the boss's side, but also what are workers doing about it? And so here I'd want to look to the organizing that's happening. And of course, we have some examples of highly skilled fields full of college graduates. I'm thinking of SAG-AFTRA, I'm thinking of the Writers Guild and the News Guild, where we have organizing that's really explicitly taken this on and tried to make sure that jobs and careers and creativity are protected. Now, how that applies to jobs that are not historically unionized, well, that's a question for organizing, but it's a political question as much as a technological question.
Interesting. When we talk about economic downturns, obviously the one that looms largest in our collective sort of memory, although, we didn't actually experience it, but, is the Great Depression. People think tough economic times, you think Great Depression. Is it as bad as that? Presumably the current situation right now, not as bad as the Great Depression, but are there lessons in looking at the Great Depression and what happened then for now? Is it a worthwhile exercise at all to look back to the Great Depression, Nick?
Well, I think of two things, and I can see Elise has thoughts too. First off, when we have this question about what's going to happen to young people in an unsteady economy, there's this question of automation we've been discussing. There's also the question of what we owe young people. We had our UMass Boston commencement today too, and I think about what our students are going off to do, opportunities they have. Obviously, in the 30s, in the New Deal era, we have a moment when the government steps in and creates jobs explicitly for young people in the case of, say, the National Youth Administration or the Civilian Conservation Corps. But if you take the WPA overall, 1 in 4 American households drew some wages from WPA programs over the 8 years of its existence. So that's a massive investment in people at a moment of uncertainty. But I would also point to the fact that in the 30s, the two of the major industries where we saw new organizing, CIO organizing, were industries that had seen tremendous automation in the previous decade, right? Automobiles and also electrical products. So we think of the GE workers up in Lynn or Wilmington or Everett in those years here in the Boston area. They organized in radically new ways, and those were young workers. And of course, they organized with the support of the federal government, right? And so I think it's important not just to think about what can we do for young workers, but also how can we support them as they organize to build the futures they want.
Elise?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think that we can go back. We can also just go back to the last recession, right? So the pandemic recession, we think about where do recessions come from? We think about oftentimes manufacturing job losses, construction, right? But there's like the traditional losses we think about. But what happened in the pandemic was different, right? It was leisure and hospitality jobs. People weren't going out to eat. They weren't going, they weren't traveling, retail jobs. And so that was very different. And that actually hit young people more as well, because many young people starting out are in those kinds of industries and those kinds of occupations that were hit worse. So what did we do, right? So we don't have to go back again to the Great Depression to think about the government stepping in, right? We reformed the unemployment insurance system. We actually made it affordable for people to keep putting food on the table and a roof over their head because we had enough of a safety net in place. Have we done anything to make a long-term fix? No, but we absolutely could. So when we think about having a safety net, if the economy goes sour, we need to make sure that we have those in place for people, not only people who have been employed and are losing their jobs, but young people who haven't gotten a foothold yet in the labor market. Some of those were left out initially in the pandemic recession of many of those measures. So I think there are fixes that we have already in the system that we could be reforming, that we could have in place that would help young workers, I think, disproportionately, but is actually a fix for the entire economy if things get worse.
All right. Well, so it sounds like, yes, things are tough out there, but also nothing we haven't seen before. We've been speaking with Nick Juravich and Elise Gould about the history and current state of the entry-level job market for young professionals. Thank you both for sharing your time and expertise with us on the Curiosity Desk today.
Thanks for having us.
Up next, we're getting fit and fabulous with the folks from GBH Archives. Now, you might not associate GBH with exercise shows, but do you see the kind of shape I'm in, YouTube viewers? I mean, come on, obviously. We've got Maggie and the beautiful machine to thank for this. Believe me. All right, on your feet, people. That's just ahead. This is the Curiosity Desk. Don't go anywhere.
Malden's downtown is changing, and immigrants are helping drive that transformation.
There's a ramen noodle place. There's Arabic restaurant further down. There's Korean restaurant. A lot of bubble tea places.
The city is now one of the most diverse in Massachusetts, and its food scene reflects that shift.
Many people have come here, and so the restaurants have followed. Dine in Malden, taste the world.
I'm Megan Smith. You can find the rest of that story online at gbhnews.org.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And Subaru of New England. The all-wheel drive Subaru Forester and Forester Hybrid are designed for New England adventures. Subaru retailer locations at subaruofnewengland.com. And Newbury Court, serving Concord, Massachusetts for 30 years as a not-for-profit continuing care retirement community dedicated to older adults. More at newburycourt.org.
Welcome to the Curiosity Desk on GBH 89.7. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. We are streaming live at youtube.com/GBH News. Well, with a couple of days in the 70s and 80s finally under our belt, the month of May reminds us that, yes, we are capable of spending time outside, and there might actually be something to the idea of being active. While you might not necessarily correlate GBH with fitness, there is a rich legacy of charming, artful, and delightfully bizarre fitness programming from the 1970s and 80s. Well, here with us now in studio for a quick jog through those GBH archives, we're joined in Studio 3 by Sammy Driscoll, archivist and project manager, and Peter Higgins, GBH Archives manager. Sammy, Peter, thanks for being with us on the Curiosity Desk.
Thanks for having us.
So when it comes to this sort of fitness and GBH thing, I wonder, is this like a GBH thing in the 70s and 80s, or is this more of a 70s and 80s thing that GBH is a part of?
So exercise in the 70s and 80s, it was kind of a new trend at the time. It was, from 1960 to 1980s, there was like this fitness industry that evolved. It was really niche. It was really male focused, but then it kind of took a turn to trending towards women.
I mean, I think about
became a movement.
Yeah, I mean, I think about the 70s, 80s. When I think about television broadly, obviously somebody like Richard Simmons comes to mind, and advertising for like VHS copies of like exercise videos and calisthenic videos and stuff like that. So this seems like it kind of happens in an ecosystem where this is happening sort of everywhere on television. I think a little bit unlike some of the other stuff where it's like when we look at things like, I don't know, like This Old House or like Victory Garden, it's kind of like GBH is like a forerunner in certain sort of genres of television being birthed. But this feels like it was happening everywhere, and we did it in our own GBH way.
Right. We're joining an existing trend.
All right, well, we're going to dip into the archives, and you went back through the archives, and it was an embarrassment of riches, but we've selected a couple of great things that we want to look at or listen to, and you can look at. We're going to start with a one-off special that GBH did called Off Your Duff. So Off Your Duff was a 1-hour special all about fitness. Let's hear a little excerpt from Off Your Duff.
I ran in broad daylight wearing shorts. I was so into it. My blood was coursing along and I felt terrific. And bonanza! I was at the top of the biggest hill in town, and there was my friend beeping her horn. I gave a victory wave back to her. And I had run nonstop 2 miles in daylight, recognized by my friends, wearing shorts on my fat little thighs, and felt sensational.
Fun production. Very, very nice. Sammy, tell us about Off Your Duff.
So Off Your Duff, it was kind of a fast-paced GBH physical fitness special. It aired in 1979. The Off Your Duff part was basically saying, stop being lazy, get off your behind.
Yeah.
But Emily Lovering, who's featured in this clip, was a GBH employee for over 30 years. She worked as a secretary, as an assistant in a lot of different departments. She even worked on Zoom later on. But this was really, her trying to go jogging for the first time. And I think jogging was still like a new
coming
idea.
into its own as a leisure / fitness activity. What strikes me about this is one special hour, right? But there were some big names that GBH got to be a part of this. I mean, Ted Kennedy, right? Tom Brokaw, the Smothers Brothers, right? I mean,
Right.
These are big names in the 70s.
Oh, yeah. And yeah, I think James Taylor's brother,
Livingston Taylor,
he
yeah.
said basketball improves my music. You had Billie Jean King in there. It was kind of like seeing high profile people on this public television program. But we wanted to showcase our GBH internal celebrity here.
I think one of the other great things about the archives is, you're in the archives, you're not just archiving the actual content, but a lot of times the materials that go with it. So in this case, we have like the press release that went out with this. And one of the things that really strikes me, and also the open of this particular special, in the press release, part of it goes, Dr. George Sheehan, author of Medical Advice for Runners and On Running, defines exercise as, quote, living at the top of your powers, physically, mentally, and spiritually, so that every day can be a masterpiece. And there is this vibe in this show of something that I think somebody would look at today in 2026 and be like, this is the same language that the wellness community is using, right? It's not just about physical fitness. It's not about being the best or the strongest. It's this idea that anybody can access it. Your path is your path. And it's about your mental health and your spiritual health and your emotional health as much as it is your physical health.
Yeah, we're about personal bests.
Personal bests. Yeah. There you go. All right, well, it wasn't just one-offs that we did here at GBH. In the 1970s, we also had some fitness series, including one with the great title, Maggie and the Beautiful Machine. Let's hear a little.
Now, I want you to try it once more, and this time, hold it while I explain to you what it is you're doing. Just breathe in and hold it as long as you can. If you have high blood pressure, don't hold your breath. Inhale deeply. What you're doing is you have... your lungs are, it's kind of like a hollow tree. The air comes down the trunk, and then there are two main branches come over this way, and instead of leaves, you have balloons, little tiny balloons all over the ends of those twigs. And every time you inhale, try it again. Did you exhale yet? If you didn't, exhale first and then inhale. That blows the balloons up, and then as you exhale, you empty them again.
Peter, tell us about Maggie and the Beautiful Machine. This show has much more of a straight kind of educational vibe feel to it.
Definitely, yeah. Maggie actually started as an educator. She was a lecturer in physical education at MIT. And eventually the exercise courses that she taught there became a lot of the material that went into the program. It started right at the end of the 60s, and she recorded over 50 episodes.
50 episodes?
Yeah, it ran for a while, and then she recorded a second series for WGBH in 1974 that was more focused on exercise for weight loss.
What was the name of her weight loss show after Maggie and the Beautiful Machine?
It was called Maggie's Physical Fatness, which might not be a title we would choose these days, but it was a little tongue-in-cheek, a little irreverent. I feel like there was an irreverent streak to
It was of the
both
time.
programs.
How much, I mean, honestly, in your work with the archives, I mean, how much of a sense do you get of that was of the time, or wow, I can't believe we said this, or I can't believe we did it that way? Is this sort of something that happens for you every day?
I think so, especially dealing with the 60s and 70s content. GBH was very experimental and tried a lot of things, and we're still doing that, obviously, but
yeah, I wouldn't have a show otherwise.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they were taking creative risks then, and we're still taking them now, but I think we have a little bit of a softer focus on political correctness, maybe.
Yeah, we're speaking with Sammy Driscoll and Peter Higgins from the GBH Archives. We're looking back at some of the gems of fitness programming in GBH's past. Well, speaking of experimental content, I'm going to play one more cut here. And this one is from a show. I don't want to say this the wrong way. How do you pronounce this?
Janaki.
There is a quiet place deep within you where you can go to find peace and strength. You can do this now by sitting quietly, both feet on the floor, your back straight yet relaxed.
Okay, what's going on here? So, first of all, one of you, it doesn't matter which, describe kind of what the visual that you would see along with what we're hearing here.
So when you were watching Janaki,
yeah,
late at night on GBH.
So it aired at night?
It aired right before sign-off, either at 10 p.m., 10:45. It was like good night from the station. You would see 2 or 3 bodies in monochromatic leotards doing yoga stretches on a stage draped with curtains and kind of soft
Very
light.
peaceful.
I feel like there's moving cameras around the people.
Yeah.
There may be multiple shots kind of fading into each other. It was very artistic. And in fact, Jane Poston, the creator, also known as Janaki, she was able to watch the broadcasts and wrote in and found the program so beautiful that she preferred watching than actually doing the stretches. So one of the final episodes of the series was made with the idea that you just want to pay attention to this and just watch it happen and not be doing the exercises.
I mean, it is very, it has like Star Trek original series vibes. I mean, like the sort of look of it, the sound of it. There's like new age music playing in the background, the sort of echo on the voice and stuff. But this is also, something that isn't in isolation in GBH. There's this strain through GBH's history as well of just pure aesthetic creativity as part of the process. And it's, to modernize, when I was watching back on this clip, in 2026, looking back at it, and it is kind of remarkable that it's a local public broadcasting station because it's gorgeous. And you're just like, wow, this is like a scene in a film today.
Yeah, and it was low budget,
really?
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And how long did it last?
I think it was only a year.
Yeah, it was just a single season. And they did make 30 10-minute episodes. Up to about 12 stations across the country ran it. And WNET in New York, they would put it on in the morning. So when they would have reruns, they would come on at like 7:45 and people would wake up to it.
I think the vibe's much better at night.
Oh,
I love that it was like the last thing before sign off. Speaking of sign off, we've been speaking with Sammy Driscoll and Peter Higgins from the GBH Archives. For more, you can always follow these guys on Facebook and Instagram at GBH Archives. Sammy, Peter, thanks again for being with us.
Thank you.
And that about does it for us for now. Coming up on the Culture Show, Jared is live from New York City, joined by Brooklyn-based artist Derrick Adams, who has a major exhibition right now on view here at the ICA Boston. Curiosity Desk is produced by Aidan Connolly, Rachel Armani, Olivia Corcio, Hannah Loss, and Nicole Garcia. Patty Daniels and Jamie Bologna help keep our show in shape. Our engineer today, John the Claw Parker. Special thanks to Andrew Massawa and Bradley Lewis. We will be right back in 23 short hours, live at the Boston Public Library, live here on 89.7, and streaming on YouTube. If you cannot wait that long, we've got a podcast version of our show. You can check that out. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts. Till next time, I am Edgar B. Herwick III, and I hope you will stay curious out there.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Modern Pest Services, providing integrated pest management for Boston homes and businesses. Modern Pest uses a prevention-first approach to seasonal pests to help target the source of the problem. Learn more at modernpest.com. A new 6-part documentary series explores the early history of Muslims in the United States, piecing together stories spanning over 200 years. American Muslims, A History Revealed, continues tomorrow at 6 on GBH 44.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show live from New York, artist Derrick Adams. He brings black joy, leisure, and everyday life into full color. In his paintings, collages, and sculptures, children climb playground unicorns, swimmers stretch out on inflatable rafts, families pose for the camera. These are scenes of pure joy with a purpose, images that push back against how often black life has been pictured through conflict or pain. We talk with Adams about joy, image making, and his first ever museum survey now on view at the Institute of Contemporary Art. Then Tony Award nominee Melissa Arrico has starred on Broadway, sung in concert halls, and made cabaret her own kind of theater. With the Streisand effect, she found a subject in Barbra Streisand, the voice, drama, and fearlessness. Now Arrico goes back to Barbara with Billy Stritch at New York's cabaret hotspot 54 Below. She joins us to talk about Streisand's pull and how a singer makes another icon's songs her own. That's all right now on The Culture Show.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. We're live from New York today by way of Digital Island Studios. Before you even walk into Boston's Institute of Contemporary Art, Derrick Adams has changed the way you see the building. Its facade is newly wrapped in his reimagining of the television test pattern, those now nostalgic vertical color bars networks used to put up when broadcasting ended for the night. It's a fitting entrance for an artist who cites television as one of his first classrooms, and who has spent his career thinking about how images shape our expectations and realities. Now the ICA is giving Adams that full field of vision. Derrick Adams' Viewmaster is his first museum survey, bringing together more than 100 works from the past 25 years, painting, sculpture, collage, and performance art, not to mention a glimpse into his public art projects. To move through it is to be surrounded by pleasure. People reclining on inflatable rafts in vibrant blue pools, families in tender embraces, a girl delighting in dreams of Tootsie Rolls. The exhibition is awash in color, candy-coated, radiant, and alive. But the pleasure isn't just surface. Adams gives pure joy a purpose, pushing back against a long history in which depictions of Black life have defaulted to conflict or pain. In his work, an ordinary day can feel as grand a subject as history itself. Derrick Adams, Viewmaster, is on view at the Institute of Contemporary Art through September 7th. He joins us now. Derrick Adams, welcome to the Culture Show. It's great to see you again.
Welcome. I'm happy to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
Well, as am I, because there is so much to discuss in what you do in your work. But I want to start with Viewmaster, which I now acknowledge that maybe the youngest listeners among us might not even know what it is. But of course, a lot of people remember it as that nostalgic toy that you would put in these slides and you'd be able to access different worlds. How does that play into this particular retrospective of yours?
Well, the Viewmaster is an object that I, used as a kid that was very popular in the 70s, and not so popular now because of, the internet and virtual reality. But at one time, that was kind of more of a basic version of what an alternate reality or a virtual reality would exist as a kid, because the Viewmaster, the way that the film was structured is that the images were flat and they were layered, and they kind of create this idea of an alternative space outside of where you actually existed as the viewer. And so I was always interested in that apparatus as a kid, and even up until, taking a role as an artist, just thinking about the way visual culture operates and the way that we are associated with imagery around us and how we see ourselves in this bigger ecosystem that's influenced by media. And also I became interested in it because Mr. Harris, Charles Harris, who was the product designer at the time, Black American from Chicago, created a redesigned version of what we know now as a Viewmaster, as a more of a usable object, kind of beyond the original kind of more collectible object that was used for mostly adults for vacation and looking at other imagery. This was now being used as an entertainment tool for kids. But also I was really interested in, this person, this Black American person who grew up in a particular time of segregation and other obstacles, was able to think about like fantasy or vision or something outside of like the day-to-day that he was existing in as a Black person at the time. I'm always interested in histories where people who create things that we use have an experience very different than my experience now in a lot of ways, even though there's a lot of similar obstacles. But at a time where things were even more tumultuous in our society, this person had the vision to take on something so much about fantasy or about envisioning a different space, but also existing in a very particular type of space and time. And so I think that became the motivation and the umbrella for this particular body of work. Collectively, when I started to think about my time as an artist, starting from the beginning and to where I am now, thinking about how so many things that are around me daily, that I, as an artist, have the task of pulling different things into my work, into my art. Yeah.
Let me interrupt it to say, for your prompt, for your vision, interesting that you used the word fantasy before for his views. But I know from our prior conversations, what we're seeing on the ICA walls is your life. You wouldn't necessarily characterize it as fantasy, would you?
I mean, I think happiness or the idea of joy is a construct that some people have an easy access to that construct, and some people have to really deliberately, purposefully be in that construct and think about that construct as being an escape, or even looking at it in a way that is considered a resistance compared to what is offered in the day-to-day for some people. So in my work, I believe that I take on a more fantastical approach of daily life because I emphasize certain things about leisure or happiness in a way that's amplified so much that it becomes more of an existential presentation of an idea that the viewer responds with a sense of, lightness or a sense of seeing something that gives them a feeling that is unlike a feeling of sorrow or pain or those types of things, which is something that is more common when you go into a museum and see works of Black American artists at this particular time or in history, because that is another part of our history, like the idea of obstacles and oppression and all of these things that are happening. That is a real thing and it's happening. But there's also moments that we, even as Black people, do not cherish publicly. And those are moments that are just the moments in between all of those things. And just like if you're in the military, like when you get leave, you take leave and you enjoy the time when you're not working in the military. And I think that, to me, being a Black person is kind of like that. It's like we have this constant battle of dealing with things, but then when we have this leave, do we look at this leave as purposeful, as being a form of rejuvenating, or thinking about how to persevere within these moments where we're not necessarily fighting or protesting or having these really important moments where things are crucial. And I think that for me, the moments when we're not doing that are also, for me, considered crucial for us to project into the world for younger people to see, and people, even people who are dealing with these things to see, for them to look at their moments of a reset as being important. The moments of like just sitting, or the moments or being in a space where everyone is on the same accord as you are, and you're not talking about things that are going to get you upset. Things that your environment, like some people actually have an environment that's nurturing, supportive.
Well, I want to ask about
Yes.
that because
Yeah.
to continue the military leave analogy, to what extent was family a very extended leave for you? Because when you see the depiction
Yeah.
of family in your show, it is so tender.
Well, again, the work in the show is like 25 years of work. So it's all kind of, I feel like looking at it now, is all like compressed in certain ways because it's a collapse of time. The works are not presented in a linear fashion where you see the beginning and the end. They kind of are mixed up based on different categories of mirroring, projecting, and things, or reflecting. And so that was more of a concept that I felt really strong about just as a visual artist, because my main focus as I'm making art is my formal training and my formal interests and dealing with color and composition. And I wanted that to be the visual draw for viewers to come in and to look at the work. And I wanted that to be the primary focus. The things that I'm drawing from are just things that I've experienced with my family as a person, and now as an artist, as an artist looking for source material and looking and reflecting back on what made me and what drives me is not really the things that most people may consider a driving force within the Black community, with so much happening around me and around us. But I purposely started to really reflect back on the times where I was with my family, or things that would not consider to be as sensational, but also it's meaningful. And so I started to think about that as my muse in my artwork, and thinking about, when I'm gone as an artist, like we all die at some point and we leave, like, what do I want people to know? What do I want people to see? What do I want people to think about when they think about me, what I was doing at this particular time, using my voice as an artist? I really strongly believe that, I have a large group of artists, friends, peers who are making works that are very different than what I'm making. And they're speaking about things that are important to them and important for us to know society. And I think that we're all covering a lot of different bases. And I think my position is a unique position that I carved out for myself, looking at all of their works and supporting all of their interests and their art practice, which could be political or literal or whatever those things that they felt really passionate about communicating. I feel passionate about what I'm doing because I feel that there's a void in that. And even if people are doing it, I don't think they're doing it with a certain level of deliberateness as I'm trying to talk about in my work.
So I want to get at a sense of who is the you, not the artist you, but is the you somebody who defaults to joy and happiness by nature?
People consider me an easygoing person and a positive type of person, but even that that takes work. Like being positive or being happy or being a person that is considered humble or modest or people person, all those things do not come easy. I feel like those things are even harder than being an asshole. I think being an asshole is really easy. Being a person who is uncomfortable being around other people, or a person who dismisses other people, or a person that prioritizes a particular group versus another particular group. It has to do with, the reason why. And, and for me, when I make my work, it's not that I'm comparing one race to another race or a cultural group to another group. I'm just prioritizing a community that I find, even within its own community, may not look at the things that I talk about as being as pressing to present in the world as I am. And I think that even by doing it, people are learning within my community and beyond how essential this is for people to understand when you think about the Black population, about the idea of rest, leisure, joy, community, all those things that we're told, like, we're not community oriented. We're not this. We're not this. All those negative things that people may feel. And, and I've even heard people say, like, the things you talk about and the things that you make may give people an impression that Black people are not in a particular place that we were in before. Like, the way you're speaking, the way you're talking, the way you're presenting, it may feel like you're undermining the struggle of how Black people have to deal with things. And I totally disagree, because when you look at history, if you look at someone like MLK, he was a person. He danced, he had fun, he laughed, he went on vacations, he did all those things, and he still protests. And I think that knowing the dimensionality of a person will only motivate the generations that exist now to understand that they could also be these people too. If you kind of create someone and you make them into like this untouchable figure and flatten them out, then people will never feel that they have some relationship to people who've done great things, because they won't think of those people as being regular people, and they were.
Well, it speaks to society's total discomfort with laughing and grief and
beauty.
And exactly, not understanding how this is the many components of life. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the color bars at the ICA and the place of color in your work, and the great work you're doing in Baltimore for other people and other artists, especially, who are coming up in your wake. But right now, I'm speaking with artist Derrick Adams about his major exhibition at the ICA called Derrick Adams Viewmaster. The conversation continues on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
"250 years ago, Massachusetts ignited the American Revolution. You know the heroes, the legends, but there are still new stories to tell.
Lots of people have read The Midnight Ride of Paul Revere. This is an opportunity to tell the story as we understand it to be true.
Discover our series From Colony to Commonwealth at gbh.org/America250.
Funding for our programs comes from you
and the University of Rhode Island's College of Business. URI's online Blue MBA blends ocean science, business strategy, and real-world impact. Learn more at uri.edu/bluemba. And Rogers Fish Company, founded by Roger Berkowitz, offering an array of New England seafood and entrees shippable anywhere in the U.S. More at rogersfishcompany.com.
And the Boston Speaker Series, announcing its upcoming season at Symphony Hall for 7 evenings featuring Pete Buttigieg, former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, war photographer Lindsay Addario, and former U.S. Ambassador to China Nicholas Burns. bostonspeakers.org.
At this month's virtual Beyond the Page event, we'll be featuring New York Times bestselling author Matt Haig. Bring your questions and join us on Monday, June 1st. Learn more at gbh.org/events.
I'm Jared Bowen. Welcome back to The Culture Show on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. We're live from New York today by way of Digital Island Studios, and I'm joined by artist Derrick Adams. We're talking about his first ever museum survey, now on view at the ICA, titled Derrick Adams Viewmaster. It brings together more than 100 works from the past 25 years, including paintings, sculpture, and his performance art. And as I mentioned in the introduction before the break, and as anybody who's down in the Seaport knows right now, your work is visible far and wide. It's visible literally across Boston Harbor. What is your connection to color bars and television and those nostalgic days of television when those color bars would pop up at the end of the night after the final seconds of a broadcast?
Growing up, in the 70s and 80s, the color bar was considered the ending of programming for the day. So it would show up on the screen at the end of the night. And this was like before cable, pretty much. And that meant the program was over, everything was closed, come back tomorrow for programming. As a kid, I just imagined it as being a curtain. I did not think that it was completely over. I thought that it was over for the viewer, but I didn't think that the people who operated the production were gone. And it was because I was also watching like Sesame Street and watching Electric Company. And so those particular kids shows really brought in the production aspect of what they were doing. So it wasn't just about like teaching. They were really talking about visual structuring when it comes to like messaging for young people. And I was just always taken by that. And so as I matured and started making art, and when I was in grad school at Columbia, 2001, 2003, I started really thinking about the critical structure of learning and how do we learn and things that we weren't exposed to and imprinting and all those things. So I really started looking at those same programs again, but I also started looking at the production of those programs. And then I started looking at like the way the camera crew kind of operated around these kids shows that gave this really intimate environment, but like around the intimate environment with this huge other production that was around. So I became really interested in that as an artist and started thinking about how images are constructed, how media is constructed, and I became really fixated on the idea of construction overall, just based on like everything around us. Why was it there? Who put it there? What was it supposed to do to us or for us? So that became a motivation.
And this is something we find in the ICA galleries, which is one of the things that really literally stuck out to me. You have portraits with puffy coats that come out toward us. You have, I love this because I still have them actually, my Matchbox cars. You have those in the exhibition. You have your sculpture, you have your performance art. So there's movement. So this is your designscape as well.
Yes. I mean, so I had the privilege of kind of even designing the layout of the exhibition. I didn't want it to be separated from rooms. I wanted it to be one big open space as for the first presentation of Viewmaster. And so I wanted viewers to be able to stand in any different area of the museum and see a different viewpoint, even with one object in front of you, but looking at it from different angles of the museum to have a different relationship to something else that is around it from that point. where you're standing. So I was really thinking about like many different ways of seeing, different relationships to objects. And it became like this thing, even for me as an artist, making all of this work, to want to look at it differently myself. And even, a lot of times when I'm thinking about my work outside of my studio, I'm thinking about how it has to have a different presentation versus how it is in my studio. Because in my studio, I know where everything is. I know what is next to another thing. In a museum or having a presentation outside the studio, you have to adjust to the structure of that space and whatever the limitations or whatever the I guess the common way of operating, you have to work within that structure. So for me, it's like, how do I want to see my work again outside of my studio or outside of storage or the gallery? How do I want to envision it or experience it? And how do I want other people to experience it as well?
Well, that's exactly what I just wanted to ask. Speaking of what you're thinking of in the studio, how much are you cognizant as you're painting, for example, of how it's going to be seen? Are you even cognizant of that?
No. I mean, when I'm working in the studio, it's rarely a time when I'm working in the studio when I know I'm having a show or when it's set. Normally, when I work on stuff in my studio, it usually starts with just an idea of something of sorts, and then I may start working on things that may become a body of work, but I'm not sure. And I'll keep working on it until I feel like it's at a place where it is a complete idea or a question or a proposal for something.
Which must be intriguing to be following that thread. Where is this taking me?
Yeah, and I work on multiple things at a time, which could be very different from each other. I might work on something that's really minimal and sculptural, and then work on something else that may be more dense in a painting or video or photography. And I'm doing all these things at the same time, but they have very different outcomes. It's the finished product. But I always feel like it doesn't have to make sense as I'm making it, because also as an artist, I'm not interested in making something if I know what it's going to look like or what it's going to be exactly when I'm done. So the idea of not knowing exactly is more of a curiosity that keeps me going in my studio. And usually, it's very common for people to come into my studio and see what I'm doing or see a larger thing of work and say, is this for a show? And I'll usually say, like, no, not really. I'm just working on stuff. But it's been, in the younger years as an artist, it worked really well in my favor, because when I would have studio visits and I was always working on stuff, because I'm always constantly working. I have studio assistants now, but for a long period of time, it was just me in my studio. And people would come in and they would say, curator or whatever, they would come in and say, is this work for anything? And I'm like, no, I've been working on it. It's just something I'm working on. And they'll say stuff like, well, it's ready to go. Like if this one artist canceled at the gallery and, we have a slot open in 2 months, I feel like this could definitely operate in the space. And, and then I might end up having a show, but it was not necessarily a show that was like a goal. Like, nope, there's no galleries I've shown with that I had on a list of galleries that I wanted to show with. Like, I never had I'm not an artist who's like very strategic when it comes to like how you level up or how you get to this place or whatever. I've never, so when artists ask me questions about like, how did you do this? Or how did you, I'm like the worst artist to ask those questions to, because I just happen to land in different places, but I always feel like anything could happen to you as a person and as an artist. And it's more challenging for you to try to catch up to an opportunity than for you to be prepared for it when it comes.
So you're mentioning the larger scale, but when you start a painting, how much is your painting designed from beginning to end when you start, or is that open as well?
Well, right now I'm working on 8 paintings in my studio, and they're small. And I just had this, idea that I have all these objects that I've been collecting, sculptures, and different things in my house. And so, I'm like in between thinking about a show and, not really, I don't think these particular works are for a particular show or anything, but I just started to paint the sculptures and the different things that I have in my house because I thought just as a still life, these are interesting objects. And I really don't see them as a bigger project. I just see them as like, I'm taking a little break. These are things I like that are around me that I feel like they are somewhat portraits of myself in some ways. And I'm like putting them together. Some of them are sculptures from friends that who have these kind of iconic objects that they've made. I'm putting those works into my painting because they're part of the still life that's in my house. So it's a lot of things like
it's a memoir of sorts.
Exactly.
In just a couple of minutes we have left, I want to ask about what you're doing in Baltimore right now. This is your hometown, and you've done quite a bit to make sure that there's access to the arts and that artists have a space.
Yeah, I mean, if I'd known what I was going to do before I did it, I probably wouldn't have done it. Like, it wasn't intentional. Again, like a lot of things that I do are not really like, I don't have like a plan. When people ask me like, how do you start this? How do you do it? What I will say is that when I commit to being a part of something, I get immersed in it, doing it. And it's to a default that I do it. I don't know when to stop. And so Baltimore became one of those things where I just didn't know when to stop. And so when I bought a property in 2019, and it was during the pandemic, it was around the same time. As soon as I got the place, the pandemic hit. And so I had this big place, but it was isolated, because I couldn't really have people there. And so I would go there to get away from New York, which was pretty dense. And I would go to Baltimore just to walk around the property that was about an acre in the city that I would spend time. And then one day I was like, you know what? I'm never moving back home. I'm not going to be here that much. So maybe I should just make this into more of a community-related space or residency that artists can come and also reintroduce people to Baltimore in a way that they may have not been introduced to Baltimore through media, because media, again, played a part on like the way that people thought about the city, but it was not really necessarily my experience completely growing up in Baltimore. So I wanted to kind of reintroduce. So I did a lot of stuff. I created an art fair called Scout, which is in the second year. I was on the board at the BMA, the Baltimore Museum. Then I was on a couple of boards at local communities. But I realized this year, I abandoned all those things. Like I abandoned this. The fair still went on this year, but I'm no longer involved. I'm no longer involved in the museum board or any other local. I'm just focusing on my nonprofit, which is Charm City Cultural Cultivation, which is a residency, a book publishing, a database archiving initiative in the city. And I felt like that was enough. But what I found when I had like this moment to kind of really think about things, I realized that I was being pulled to all these different spaces because of what I was focused on, that other people were bringing me into their thing because they realized how committed I would be to doing things. And so I realized like it wasn't just about me being so supportive. It was about it was kind of taking me away from what I was doing. Like it became like this thing where I was being asked to save other things. And I'm like, you know what? I need to just focus on what I'm doing and make my thing great and just let that be my contribution to the city and not try to like do everything in the city.
Which will be extraordinarily fruitful and has been, of course. Well, Derrick Adams, it is great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. And again, congratulations on the show and all the joy that you're bringing to Boston right now, especially this summer.
Thank you.
Derrick Adams, Viewmaster, is on view at the ICA through September 7th. To learn more, go to the ICA's website. Again, thank you. Well, coming up, people who love people and Barbra Streisand are in luck. Tony nominee Melissa Arrico joins us with Back to Barbara, her new cabaret show with Billy Stritch. She's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
Syria is holding its first trial for a member of the former Assad regime accused of crimes against humanity. Syrians are demanding justice despite the fact that the courts, like many aspects of the new government, are still taking shape.
We cannot wait until we have a good army and a good governance and a good economy, and we have to be realistic.
That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Harvard Museums of Science and Culture. 4 museums a short walk from Harvard Square, with exhibits ranging from stunning glass flowers to ancient Egyptian mummy cases. Learn more at hmsc.harvard.edu.
Support for GBH comes from you and Lyric Stage Boston.
It makes me feel proud that Lyric Stage Boston has been a sponsor of GBH for so many years.
Heather Darrow, Director of Marketing.
Things are ever changing in the landscape of digital media, radio, and sponsorship. And I've continued to become a supporter of GBH because of the consistency of their programming, their commitment to the city and the arts.
To learn more, visit gbh.org/sponsorship.
Breaking local news and breaking it down to how it affects you. GBH News 89.7, gbhnews.org, and streaming on the GBH app. Trusted local news.
I'm Jared Bowen. This is The Culture Show on 89.7 and streaming on the GBH News YouTube channel. We're live from New York today, a city where every nightlife is a cabaret, as we hear here.
Where are the clouds? Send in the clouds just when I'd start opening doors, finally knowing the one that I wanted was yours, making my entrance again with my usual flair.
She's chiming in already. You are ready to go.
It's my favorite song.
It's my favorite song.
It's totally my favorite song. I have to tell you. Hi, I'm Melissa Errico. I'm on the show. But
This is the first in 2.5 years. I never even got to your introduction.
It's not that. It's
You're
just
just
like it's
gonna
sort
do
of
it.
embarrassing. Just come to my show if you want to hear that song. You're going to hear Send in the Clowns. Last night with Billy Stritch playing the piano and a quartet at the beautiful 54 Below, which is underneath Studio 54. For the real insiders, you'll know that the basement of Studio 54 has a wild history of being where unusual things, drugs and sex have happened during the disco days. But now it's a little more
That was all
elegant.
before our
It's-
time.
Exactly. I try to create some entropy there nightly and some exoticism and jazz, but there are no drugs and a beautiful dinner. It's all classy, golden walls, designed by a great Broadway set designer, but it creates the illusion of one of the great supper clubs now. No longer this raunchy place.
No vials of cocaine anywhere to be found.
No. Just I get a little wild. So, and we do work on it, getting things a little fun and jazzy. But last night, Send in the Clowns started, and I was in this tight beaded dress with like off the shoulder, very Barbara Streisand with the choker and everything, and the music started da 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 da, and I literally just as I sat in my little chair thing, I said, I wonder what this song is. Like the audience just like, because it's Send in the Clowns. So it was fun.
I loved it.
Just like mumble these little things sometimes.
Well, so now I'll to quickly tell people, if they don't know, Tony nominee Melissa Errico. You correct my pronunciation. I got it wrong beforehand, and we did all our homework too. But you're right now.
But Enrico is good. I didn't mean to be like correcty. I'm not like being.
No, you can
Barbara
totally do
actually
that.
likes. Funny thing is, she's the one. Okay, this is going to be a digressive.
This is going to be really
minutes.
fun.
Okay.
This is why we came to New York.
Yes, for loudmouths like me. She's the person who I just got out of bed too, which is funny that I could be lively at all. So opening night was last night. So she's the one who went to Alexa and wanted to correct the pronunciation because they said like Streisand.
Oh, that's
and
right.
It's Streisand. And she's the first person to correct the Alexa pronunciation of her name. So I'm right on right in character. I'm right on theme.
I know how to say her name because she corrected Peter Jennings at the Democratic National Convention. I remember her years ago watching broadcast television. I thought, wow, she just schooled Peter Jennings. He is somebody who's not typically schooled. So that's how I know. So the reason we're talking about Barbara...
We're a small scale little scene that kind of gets you in the mood. Everybody in the mood now?
So we're talking about Barbra Streisand because you have your show Back to Barbara because you did the Streisand Effect. So now this is follow-up. And by the way, for people listening...
It's an encore.
An encore. And you're going to be encoring in Provincetown this summer, too, which is why our Boston audience is in particular...
August 23rd, literally my dream of... I thought like someday I'll play Town Hall in P-Town. Literally, it seemed so random that it would ever possibly happen, but I did clock like, God, that would be the greatest thing. And when the producer from P-Town saw the Streisand Effect, which is this concert I'm doing again, and you can live stream it on May 29. So while you're home for like $20 or something, you can kick back, have a drink with your friend for 75 minutes and enjoy the live stream. But come to P-Town. It is happening. He's invited me to P-Town. He goes, I want this town hall.
I mean, to bring Barbra Streisand to P-Town.
Right?
Why didn't this happen 40 years ago?
I know. I'm having to build this whole idea of like how crazy it's going to get, whether everyone will be singing with me or whether it's all about her or all about how she changes a person. See, my interest in Barbra comes out of 20 years of doing thematic concerts. So to back up for anyone who has no idea who this maelstrom of a lady is.
Who just barged into my show. Wouldn't even let me do an introduction. Anyway, so I cut you off
like
now.
Barbara, I'm directing.
Exactly.
I'm introducing.
So to back up,
I have been doing thematic cabaret concerts for about 20 years. I have 3 teenage children that match that time frame. They're 20 and twins are 17. And I've been on Broadway since I was really young. Did My Fair Lady on Broadway, lots of shows, Les Mis at 18. So I really come foundationally from Broadway. But as I became a mother and also thought about the best of what I got and have up to date, though I'm not saying I wouldn't do Broadway again, but the best of what I got became crystal clear to me. I was started to select what I most loved. It's the American Songbook. It's jazz-based things like Cole Porter, Rodgers and Hart. I loved to swing. I loved being in high society. I loved On Your Toes as a child. It's a jazz musical. So the kind of jazz-based American Songbook, that's the seedbed, as it were, of Sondheim's music. He was the pupil, everyone knows, of Oscar Hammerstein. Oscar Hammerstein's music, love it, even stuff with Jerome Kern. And then as I progressed through Broadway and did Sondheim musicals and worked with Michel Legrand, the great French film composer, has many Oscars, won a lot of awards for his collaborations with Barbra on Yentl. I've made a record with him, 2 records actually, because when he passed, I wrote his obituary in the Times. I put out a deluxe record with demos of him talking to me. At this age, I'm in my mid-50s, and at this age, I've tried to, like everyone in my age, make sense of what's the best of what I've gotten. And it's become clear to me this year that all the places I've been, the classic American Songbook, my ancestors that come from the actual Follies, work with Legrand, Sondheim. I worked with Marvin Hamlish. Peter Matz put me in my first Broadway show. This is just a moment in time. I'm just looking at my life with the realization that all of this is the garden of Barbra. This was what she did. I'm sort of doing it backwards. I found all her flowers before I knew it was her garden. Do you see what I mean?
I do see what you mean.
So thematic concerts have been a thing for me for like 20 years. I've done film noir, nights about Legrand, nights about Stephen Sondheim, nights about Manhattan itself. This is another one of those Melissa nights that are literary parties, fun, about self-discovery. They're nothing like tributes or boring like the other movie she did, it was this, and the other movie she did was this. It's not that. It's like, where did she pioneer for the human spirit, for
Well,
women and
you-
singers.
You're a sociologist, an archaeologist.
I guess.
You're all
I'm
of
actually
the
an art
things.
history major. I went to Yale. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Yeah.
So no, but as a sociologist, an archaeologist, looking at how music has been planted, how music has been left for us, how it's been excavated by people like Barbra Streisand. This is what you're doing right now, figuring out and giving back to us how we got here into this moment as we look back at the American Songbook.
Yes, the way we are versus the way we were, the way we are. It's like we can see it through a beautiful lens of her enormous gifts.
How did she do it so distinctly?
I don't know. Speaking of like sociology, this and that sounds all brainy. I've been called a sexual intellectual. I had a critic say she's a Jessica Rabbit with a PhD, but to that end, I feel like a PhD student that will never graduate, especially in this topic, because how did she do it? I actually can't answer that. The more I see, I watched The Owl and the Pussycat 2 days ago with my eldest daughter. Super sexy movie with, the hands on the breast, outfit that she wears and like Doris written on her butt. And like, it's so radical. It's the first movie where the F-bomb was used ever. And yes, there was never an F-bomb in a film.
I didn't realize that.
I have a drag queen who told me that. Steve Brindberg. He plays Barbara for many, many decades. He is directing the show. And Steve was telling me about the F-bomb. They still remove it from certain streaming platforms, but he has the DVD where you hear the F-bomb, which is why the guys chase her through the garage, because she really said F off. Now they chase her and she hasn't really said anything. But so Barbara, I'm sure, is like, they should put the F-bomb back in.
Well, she talks about her films as you and I have something in common in that we both decided, well, maybe you did, read her memoir.
Of course I did, yeah.
In addition to listening to the memoir. I only listened to it, and it's an extraordinary listen, and you realize the extent that she still wants control over all of her projects and has gone back and edited certain pictures.
Yes, last word on everything. She has every right to. It'd be like a painter, who has his painting and like other people are touching it. It's like, no, I'm sorry. Can I just finish my painting? So I'm good with her. I listened, and I would hate this interview to fly by without mentioning that I stumbled on, if we're going to talk about the book, I think the inspiration for the concert came when I got to the written page 729. In that, on the left side, Pat Conroy in italics had written her a letter thanking her for making the movie of The Prince of Tides. He said, my book needed you. It needed a woman of genius, a woman of vision, a daughter of fire. And on the next page, top right-hand corner, she says, a daughter of fire. And she puts that in italics. She says that really stopped her. And she's thinking about daughter of fire. I looked it up, and in the same years, in the 80s, there was a popular book called Daughter of Fire about a woman in her 50s going to India and finding herself. And it's a journal of Sufi wisdom and finding ourselves, what matters, and just really like breaking it down to like the bare bones of what like matters in life. It's called Daughter of Fire. Not sure if Pat Conroy was referring to that, but Barbara took it and ruminated on it further, that in Yiddish, her grandmother always spoke Yiddish and used to call her and look at her as a child and call her verbrennt, which means on fire. So this idea of the daughter of fire, I took the expression to David Shire, who's the only living collaborator of her key cohort. I am making a musical with him. He's 90, with Adam Gopnik, the great writer from The New Yorker, who's been on your show, says hello. He and David Shire have been working on a musical for me on the life of Eleanor of Aquitaine. All that means is I've been to David's house a lot, and he has a room. I'll clarify that it's the toilet, it's the powder room. It's dedicated to Barbra Streisand and all the pictures of them together. And I called David and I said, could you write me an original pop song for my tribute, my homage concert that's hip? Can you write me an original song called Daughter of Fire? And so we have that. So people get to hear that at the live stream on May 29th.
And again, we're talking about your performance as a Club 54. If you happened, or not Club 54, below
Well, it's called 54 Below.
54
yeah,
Below.
Yeah, which is, I guess, a witty
See
inversion
how
or something.
flummoxed you got me when you're
Yes,
giving
it's okay. That's my...
I'm not easily flummoxed.
That's good.
Because we're talking about that. We're talking about the live stream that people can participate in.
Yeah, May
And
29 is a live stream, and then I'll be at P-Town as a Daughter of Fire on August 23rd. A lot of people, when the show is over, that's their takeaway. Barbara's a Daughter of Fire. I'm trying to learn to be a Daughter of Fire. Feminism missed my house. Despite appearances, I've learned to have enthusiasm, to put myself forward, to not get trampled, a little bit of Me Too business in my life, and professors at Yale who took advantage of me, just different things where I didn't have sense of myself and be steady. And I'm finding that conjuring Barbara Streisand at this time in my life, she's steadying, she's exciting, she's full of contradiction, she's insecure. Actually, she's weirdly a goddess who's got all this self-doubt. So she's a wonderful...
well, that's fuel, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very...
You can't be overly confident. Then where do the nerves come? Where does the energy come? I would think. I'm not a performer. I'm an ask questions guy.
Yeah, well, she says that she's insecure, but then all her interviews, she just has this innate voice that always, to her, she knows she's right. And it's like she's really used to hearing that voice. It's like you learn as you get older that whatever you practice becomes you. Your thoughts become your destiny. Somehow she practiced, despite her insecurities and different things, she practiced a relationship to that inner voice, that she's right. I recently released an album called I Can Dream, Can't I? And late in the record, I sort of diverge or leave the American songbook from the 30s and 40s, and I put a few modern-ish numbers at the end on purpose. And one is Dave Frishberg's song, Listen Here. And I mean, I wish we had thought of it. You could finish this.
I did pull a song, but it's
Listen Here.
from the
It's probably
songbook.
That's
Yeah.
okay. That's okay. But the audience can go check out Listen Here, because it's about listening to your inner voice. And I don't think I'll do Barbara Streisand concerts forever, but I have learned a lot about that thing she had, which is that strong sense of knowing her voice, having her physical voice being perfect, of course, untrained. I'm overtrained. I listen to everybody. I take notes. Everybody gives me notes. One time on Broadway, I had so many Post-it notes I could barely see my face on the mirror. I'm that kind of person. I always, she would take all the Post-it notes off. She wouldn't even have put them there to begin with.
Have you ever met her?
I met her backstage. I know her director, Richard J. Alexander, and he introduced me to her backstage at Madison Square Garden. It was totally polite, but she wouldn't have known that I would grow into this unbelievable, missionary or something, this acolyte.
Would you want to meet her again?
Oh, yes. And I think she might find some of this enthusiasm embarrassing, which Sondheim also did when I was very smitten with him. But
he was a mentor of yours.
Yes, and he found the word sublime. My first album is called Sondheim Sublime. He found that embarrassing because it's almost a religious word. It's an art history word. And it had a really strong, good reason. So we did work together, and he wouldn't, whatever, fine. But we stayed friends. And I think she too would realize that all I mean is to elevate all the gifts and the ways in which flowing from her source, she's given so much permission to other people to expand.
Well, we have spent a lot of time talking about Barbara Streisand, but your reviews are rapturous. The concert goers love your shows, and part of it is the way you interpret each individual song. That you keep avoiding the word tribute for Barbara Streisand. It sounds like your shows aren't even a concert for the way you approach each song. How do you throw yourself into each one individually rather than just, all right, here's the next one, I'm just going to sing it and give it to you?
I've bought into this idea. Well, first of all, thank you. The press has been super supportive. I would love to be able to monetize that a little, make it so I could perform more easily and more gigs and bigger audiences, because I'd love to relax into.
It's a good time to remind people, Melissa Errico, that's who we're talking about. You can get her new album, you can see her concert, you can stream her concert and come to P-Town.
Yeah. I mean, I have a fan club. We call it the Colony. Just the more I can, I'm not good at business, but I have so much to give. But I think what I have unique in myself is this foundational idea that the American songbook, all the way to modern music, any song I'm handed, but the American songbook and this whole world of music, this is a world of philosophy. And the song, every time I start it, I don't know what it's going to teach me. I actually don't know, because I'm so available to grow and learn from the music. So if it's sexy, like I got lost in his arms, and I got lost in his arms. How's it go? Lost in his arms, and I got lost in his arms, and I had to stay. How it was dark in his arms. You see how that changed? I got lost in his arms, and I had to stay. Then what? It was dark in his arms, and I lost my way. From the dark came a voice, and it seemed to say, there you go, there you go. How I felt as I fell, I just can't recall. I don't know why I went off this tangent, but you see how every line, if you live every line, it's probably like Meryl Streep or something. She didn't have any plans, right? Whenever you hear her talk. I am childlike in that way. And if I have a good pianist, they know that I'm childlike and that I will live each sentence. And by the end, the song will have taken me somewhere. And that's, I think, always unclear, whether I'll be like laughing, sexed up. Yesterday I did something pretty crazy with Billy. I was like grabbing the piano. I don't know what I was doing. I sat next to him and got really wild because we were doing Down with Love, and I was like, wasn't having like sex with him or anything, but it was kind of like that, like, because the song Down with Love is like ugh, ugh, ugh. But then because we were, throwing it down so much, it kind of became fun. It's hard to explain how a negative song about love could turn into lovemaking, but it happens if you just let the song and the rhythms and the band. So that's what makes it, I think, alive. And if I could be protected more and have a better business around me, I could keep that safer,
Well, where do you keep your eyes open when you're singing? And
oh yeah, you mean like physically open?
Physically open.
Oh yeah.
Well, I see a lot of people who close their eyes, and I think, where did they just go? And I should have known. As you were just reciting those lyrics,
no, I was
you
told
were fully
don't do
engaged.
that. Oh, I was just trying to remember the words.
No. You kept your eyes open the entire time.
Oh, I did.
And I was thinking, how do you remain so present and visual in taking yourself to a certain place in a song, and still keep your eyes open and be aware that you have lights on you and a pianist next to you and the audience in front of you?
Yeah, well, Barbara, of course, says that the key for her, she always has her eyes open and she's so perfect. She doesn't like to see faces. And that's she says is one of the problems with live performance for her is this awareness of all the faces. To the darkness, the velvet black, giant blackness, for her is safe. And then she focuses and she needs to see that black. I don't have the budget for that. So I can't, I have to see people eating and
people at bay.
Yes. I saw this couple hugging and snuggling during People last night. I was singing People, and the people in the front row got super romantic with each other. My Valentine's concert at Birdland, I do every year. I'm doing my 6th year next year. I always do 10 shows at Birdland. People start making out. I have to see all of that. I have no choice. So.
If somebody was eating, well, people our listeners know I can't stand to listen to people eating for the crunching. What kind of an effect does that have on you?
Well, listen, if I'm going to get prissy about all the details of my career,
I'll
just
call me prissy.
No. If I was going to get prissy about people, eating and stuff, then I'd lose my work. I have to be relaxed. The nightclubs are healthy. Actually, they'll make Radio City, if I ever get there, or Carnegie Hall, they're going to make it easy. Can you imagine if I can do what I do under the circumstances? I do it. It makes you funny. It makes you deal with problems. It makes you relate to the audience. It's good. It's good training. The nightclubs are good.
What I hear here, it makes you absent of ego.
Yeah, when you have an ego, you have to be able to get rid of it and then put it back on, back and forth. You obviously, I want to take people to this really special place, but then from time to time, if something happens or somebody heckles me or like I said, people kissing or somebody, you have to be normal and then take them back. We're all safe and together. It's motherly. It's like mothers, you're practical and then passionate, back and forth.
Well, Melissa Errico, I feel like this is just the first of many conversations. You were just at the Regatta Bar, you were telling me. So the next time you're in Boston, You're back on the
Yes.
show. Would you come back on the show?
Oh, yes. The
Will you let
Regatta
me
Bar.
give an introduction to you the next time?
Promise.
You can't do this again because I see what you're about to do, and I have to do this show close. I have to do
Okay,
this
I'm going to shut up.
so that we can tell everybody about you. Tony Award nominee Melissa Errico's latest album is I Can Dream, Can't I? Illusions and Conversations from the Great American Songbook. Her new show is Back to Barbara with Billy Stritch, running through tomorrow at 54 Below here in New York. There's also a live stream of tomorrow's performance, and she brings the Streisand Effect, to Provincetown, playing Town Hall August 23rd. Melissa Errico, thank you so much again. First of many conversations.
Total crush. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another edition of The Culture Show. We will not be at our BPL studio tomorrow, but you can tune in for actor Donnie Wahlberg discussing his new hometown show, Boston Blue, which has just been renewed for a second season, plus the makeup artist turned mogul, Bobby Brown. The Culture Show crew is Max Chow-Gillette, Kate Dellis, and Chelsea Mers. Today's engineer is Bill Piacatelli. Bill Francis produced our YouTube live stream. Thank you to Digital Island Studios and engineer Bill Sigmund for hosting us here in New York City. And additional thanks to Gary Mott and Josh Polanski. I'm Jared Bowen. Have a great day. We have 17 seconds if you have something left to say.
Now I'm going to show how calm I can be. Bye.
Okay, bye. Have a great weekend.
Love you guys.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Spend your afternoon with us. Stay with us for GBH's All Things Considered at 4 and Marketplace at 6:30. But first, the world. A global view of today's headlines from the World Newsroom. Right here on GBH 89.7.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And MIT Sloan Executive Education, offering over 90 short courses that pair MIT research with hands-on frameworks designed to be applied immediately at work. More at executive.mit.edu. Made over 16 years, a filmmaker collaborates with her mother as they confront the painful and curious reality of wisdom in the shadows of dementia. Watch POV, Wisdom Gone Wild, tonight at 9 on GBH2.
Everybody expects some rowdy fans at sporting events, but what about rowdy drones?
Every major public gathering, from a World Cup match to an America 250 celebration, is now a drone environment.
I'm Scott Detrow. As the FIFA World Cup nears, the FBI is training law enforcement to stop a growing threat in the U.S. skies, malicious drones. That's on the next All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?